Pawns becoming queens, queens becoming champions. It's the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship.
Wow! Oh my god!
Some of the world's best women chess players are here to compete in the electrifying SCC format of escalating time controls, known for its heart-pounding moments and nail-biting finishes. With a prize fund of $75,000 up for grabs, who will take home this year's crown?
Yeah, come on! Oh no! Oh!
Yeah, that was
decided in the very last moment.
At this pace and at this high level, there is very little room for mistakes.
What? That's not really hanging! Oh no!
Get ready, all the action starts now.
Welcome back to the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship. I'm Robert Hess. Alongside me is Irene Sukander. Irene, yesterday we saw two decisive matches in favor of Yifan as well as Harika Dronavali. Today, another great match. We have the reigning champion Kateryna Lagno taking on the qualifier Priyanka.
Yes, exactly, Robert. Do we see another decisive match today? I think we will see the smart chess to predict it. But, wow, if you see the bracket, this match could be a decider whether we will have an all-Indian semifinal. Because Harika yesterday we saw was just crushing Gunina in a very huge score. And also Yifan is just waiting to see the winner of Vaishali versus Kosteniuk. We will see the game tomorrow.
That's right, we already have one Indian semifinalist in Harika. That was an excellent display of chess from her. And Priyanka, she's the qualifier. She will have her hands absolutely full because Kateryna Lagno, she won this event a year ago. And well, she's the #1 seed for a reason. This is today's matchup, Lagno and Priyanka. And Irene, I think we are going to be in for a good one.
Yeah, exactly. For Lagno, this is not an easy task because Priyanka Nutaki, this is her debut in the WSCC, and she qualified for very good reason, beating so many strong players in the qualifiers.
Yes, the qualifiers are never an easy competition, and for Priyanka, she earned her right to be here. Some players were invited, others they had to make their way to the stage. And we keep talking about Kateryna Lagno, so why don't we bring up her bio and her accomplishments. There are too many to list on just a small graphic here. She won the WSCC a year ago. She was the Women's World Championship runner-up in 2018. And she's also won the FIDE Women's World Rapid Championship and the Women's World Blitz 3 different times. Irene, she's a star.
She is a star, but I think the role of her husband, GM Alexandra plays a big role in her life as well. Well, if you have a second of a 2700 Grandmaster, Robert, you can do all these things too.
Yeah, both of them, they probably thrive because of the other. 3-time World Blitz champions, the two of them. And for Kateryna, I mean, she has shown that she can take her over-the-board successes and translate that to online success. And we talked to Kateryna before the start of the WSCC, heard her thoughts about the pressure of being a reigning champion. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Well, no, I don't feel any kind of pressure this year. I didn't play a lot online since last year, so well, I don't have a lot of expectations. So just I will try to practice a little bit before the start of event. So and we'll see because well. It's online blitz. It's not for me. It's a completely different story from classical, yes, from overboard chess, so over the board chess. So we'll see. I do really want to win it. So I don't know. Maybe yes. Maybe a little bit less pressure. Because it's online tournament, but anyway, of course the main goal is to win a match and another one if it's possible, and well, if you're lucky enough, maybe a tournament.
Irene, it's nice to hear from
Yes.
Kateryna Lagno, who says she doesn't feel pressure, but she's still hungry to win. That feels like the sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just like what she mentioned, she actually doesn't really play so much this year. Maybe because, well, she has 4 kids. It's a lot to manage, but she still shows a really good chess. She plays in a couple of Grand Prix tournament and still showing her class.
Yes, and we see her wooden background there. It's a nice backdrop with the TV on the wall. So she's getting set for her opponent, Priyanka Nutaki. And Irene, I feel like many people don't know so much about her opponent. There are so many talented players coming out of India these days, and Priyanka is just another one. She is making her WSCC debut. She's the youngest player in the competition here at the Women's Speed Chess Championship. She was the World Girls under 10, champion, and she's gained 324 classical ratings since April 2018. So she clearly is an improving player.
Exactly. Although her current rating is kind of sporadic, but this only shows that she is progressing. And I think this is the type of the player that you always have to be afraid to face off because you never know, are they on their peak or are they on their worst performance? So I think it's going to be a very big challenge for Kateryna because she usually faces the likes of Yifan, Kosteniuk, where she plays with them regularly. This one, it will take her by surprise.
Yeah, because Priyanka's a bit of a wild card. You don't know what to expect from her, but we do know how she qualified for this event. She had to test the waters in the qualifier. She beat Daisy Corey, lost to Paulina Shuvalova, but in this double elimination format, she was right back at it in the losers bracket, where she took down Anastasia Bodnaruk to make her way through to the Women's Speed Chess Championship. So, Irene, the one thing that you said that stands out to me is that Priyanka, she can be a bit unsteady, but sometimes that's a good thing when you're the underdog. If you're streaky, you can land a number of decisive wins.
Yeah, definitely, because she's still currently off the radar to all the favorites, to the elite players. But this is going to be a very big surprise, and I think this is one of the most exciting match to watch because we never know what to predict. Even though people would always favorite Kateryna Lagno, she is seeded number one, she is the former World Blitz champion, and so on. But I think Priyanka will give a very good fight against Lagno.
Well, you said it, I believe you. But let's talk about what Smarter Chess predicted for this match because Kateryna on paper is a huge favorite. And look what Smarter Chess predicted. 18.5 to 6.5 final score, 92.6% win probability. When you look at these numbers from the 5+1 all the way down to the 1+1 type control, Irene, do you agree?
Ooh, this is such a huge difference to the comparison. 92% versus 7. Wow, this is huge. But I guess yes, Kateryna Lagno is still the favorite, but I don't think the score between them two in the end later will be that huge, Robert. I think it will be quite close. We see the match between Paulina Shuvalova versus Ho Yifan, where Paulina was at some point leading the match, even though in the end, Ho Yifan, our world number one, still proved that she is a better player.
Yeah, that was a nice comeback from Yifan. She finally found her footing and then was able to dominate the shorter time controls. And while the community has spoken, suggesting that Smarter Chess might be onto something because in the bracket contest, 86% of the people who filled out a bracket said that Kateryna would win, 14% to Priyanka. So more people from, at least by percentage, from the community believe in Priyanka. But we also know, Irene, there are many Indian fans out there who, no matter if you're playing the lowest rated player or the highest rated player, they'll say, we are proud of our competitors. So Priyanka, they believe in her.
Yeah, but you also have to see yesterday's prediction where most of the community was voting for Gunina, and we see what happened. So I don't know if we can trust the Smarter Chess today because, again, like what I said, it's going to be a quite close match. Kateryna will take by surprise because she's not very accustomed to Priyanka's playing of style. So I think, yeah, we'll see. And it's, again, we are talking about Indian youngsters. So it will be fireworks on the board.
There certainly will be. And as you mentioned, Katerina, she's not playing so much online. And this is a three separate time control format. So they have to play a very long match where they start with 75 minutes of 5 minute base time with 1 second added per move. Then we get 50 minutes of that Title Tuesday time control of 3 minutes plus 1 second increment. Last but certainly not least, 25 minutes of bullet chess. 1 minute for the entire game with 1 second added after every move you make. So Irene, it usually comes down to the bullet in close WSCC matches. And for Priyanka, who's younger, who may be playing a bunch more online, that could come to her favor.
Yeah, exactly. I think the shorter, the better it is for, well, the weaker player. In this match, of course, Priyanka is the lower seed player, and I think, yeah, it will give her more chance, more luck actually, in the shorter time control. Maybe anything can happen, right? But learning from the experience from yesterday, one of the players, if they are losing, they should just keep calm, and then not to be affected with the past results, and then they can make a comeback.
And we shouldn't hide it from everybody watching that sometimes technological issues play a part in these speed chess championships. And we just, Kateryna Lagno's, her camera went off, and she might be having some issues already. And that's not comfortable when you're playing a long match. If you're
Yeah.
sitting there like, wait, is my connection there? Did my opponent move yet? Or am I lagging? So for Lagno, she needs to get that set up correctly right now, because Irene, that will cost her if she cannot fix her connection.
Exactly, and this is also what happened with Gunina yesterday. She lost a few games due to her internet connections. Her connections were laggy, and then she just completely in a winning position. She just dropped it because of the connection itself. And also, prior to all these games, if you have this type of connection, you don't feel comfortable playing, because you always worry that at some point it will die, and then it will just kill your result and all. So exactly, Katrina has to fix the connection before she can come back playing as scheduled.
Well, when Katerina is dialed in, we know what she's capable of. She won this event last year, and that was no easy feat considering her competition. Because in 2022, in the Women's Speeches Championship, look at who she beat along the way, Vantika Agarwal. And that was a heavy difference between the two. Humpy Koneru, a grandmaster from India. That was close, but Lagno came out on top. Then she beat the rising star in Vaishali. And last but certainly not least, she took down Yifan in a close final, 15 to 13
Wow.
final score. So Irene, Katerina, she can get the job done.
It was such an impressive lineup of the people that Kateryna Lagno had beaten during the WSCC. And I think today against Priyanka Nutaki, and there she is. She's back. Finally, Robert. I think we will have our first game very soon.
I hope so, but I think we've been talking about Priyanka and Katerina. That what you said really is standing out to me, Irene. That for Priyanka, she's unpredictable, because when you haven't faced somebody, say 20 times over the board or in various tournaments, you don't always know what to expect. And especially because she's a youngster, her rating is fluctuating a bit. I saw in a recent classical event that Priyanka beat two GMs in the final two rounds, including someone over 600 FIDE. So she's clearly capable of taking down high level players, and Katerina needs to watch out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, unpredictable she is. I think she is the dark horse of this event, Robert, because the way how she qualified, and then the way that she is putting herself into this WSCC, it already a proof that she is capable of beating strong players. And we have a lift off.
We do. So we see a French defense. I am a longtime French defense hater. I have to acknowledge that this bishop now on d7, it's a passive piece, but it's a solid opening because you have a pawn chain into the center from black, and white has a pawn chain in the other direction, and you typically attack in the direction of your pawn chain.
Yeah. This is, well, I'm not a big fan of French defense myself, but I play a few lines against French defense, and still, it is still fascinating me of how this defense, or how this variation and this opening has developed into the modern theory. And here we see Bishop d7. I think this is one of the oldest and classical theory, the advanced variation. So normally I would go for a3 here, just a simple one. But Lagno played bishop e2. I think this is still normal, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, look at this knight to e7. For those viewers who may not be familiar with the French, what are you doing putting your knight over here? Well, this pawn on e5 says your knight can't get out to f6, so the knight and the bishop fight for similar squares. This knight will come to f5 or over to g6. Both are available to the knight, and then, and only then, the bishop will develop from f8. So, Irene, you said you play this from the white side, these types of positions. Do you feel like you have a good score and a good understanding, or do you struggle with the French? Because some people do.
Well, I always try to play some like a minor variation, not going to the main line unless I have some good preparation, or unless it is like a very big event, an important event to prepare to, like World Cup or World Championship. Then I might go to the main line. But usually I will just go to some sideline. My record, I think, is not that great, but also not bad either, because I always somehow managed to find some complication in this variation.
And that's true because the French can open up. It starts as a closed position.
Yep.
We've already seen a capture on c5. This pawn will likely be captured back soon. And I'm looking at Kateryna Lagno's camera because it's back. I saw it. It went to black. She lost connection. She is back. Hopefully, it is stabilized. But what she also wants to do, Will Lagno, is bring her knight to b5 and stabilize it there because, Irene, that could be a valuable outpost.
Yes, this is exactly the most principled move and idea, to put your knight on b5 when your opponent already pushed the a pawn to a5. This is going to be a great outpost for any piece that you have, namely your minor pieces, the knight or the bishop, and maybe you can cement it with playing a4. So that's why this a5 move has its drawback, I think, for me. I'm not really a big fan of this move pawn, but I think the game is still going okay for black.
So I know what you want to do here. So it's black's turn. You want to play a5 to a6, but unfortunately chess.com won't let me do that because pawns don't move backwards. But that would be probably the best move, is pushing that pawn backwards to kick the knight out of there.
Exactly. And yeah, and now this knight on b5, it's controlling d6. And at some point, if you want to drop it back to d4, you may. And knight h4 is on the board. I think this is such a good trade offer by Priyanka, because this knight is holding on to e5 pawn. And by doing so, now the e5 pawn is kind of weakened.
Yeah, I'm looking at bishop takes h7. That's something you always have to keep an eye on, with knight g5 to follow. And Kateryna, she plays it. It receives a brilliant move.
Yes.
How does
Yeah,
black...
yeah.
Woo! This is going to be fun. What is happening?
Wow. I think it is possible that Priyanka missed it, but how did Kateryna saw everything so fast? Like, this sacrifice, of course, it is a typical Greek sacrifice, but you still have to calculate your knight on b5 was hanging. There's still some considerations to do, but Kateryna just played it in an instant.
Yeah, I think we need an instant replay. If we can bring up an analysis board. Actually, rook d1 was a mistake, so maybe we'll have to figure out why that was. But look at this here. Bishop takes h7 check, giving up the piece, because if the king went back to g8, then the queen slides out to h5, threatening checkmate, and this loose knight on h4 both would be hanging. So instead of going back, the king went up to g6. The queen comes out, the knight takes the pawn, hitting this queen on g4, and after the queen takes the knight, there's no more discovered check. Down goes the knight over here. So, Irene, as we get to the live position, I'm wondering if black can defend with a move like rook h8, so there's no more queen h7 check ideas.
Exactly. I think rook d1 feels a bit too slow for me when you are trying to attack the king like that. So what could be better than rook d1? Because in the previous position before Kateryna played rook d1, I think the eval bar was still in favor for white.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if we just go back here, we see, the eval bar is towards the center. The move that had to be played, apparently, is queen g3. That's a really difficult move when your rook is under attack back here, and the black king could try to escape back to f6 and e7. So this is a difficult position. Blunders happen, mistakes happen in speed chess. And right now, the question, Irene, is how does black deal with it? Because white will play queen g3 next, hitting this knight and threatening the king in the queen's path.
Yeah, exactly. Is it possible that the move f5, because you still cannot take on e6, you just want to create some square for your king to escape?
Wow, f5 would be a huge idea. And that also gives the knight the g4 square, and it could be black going on the attack of the f2 pawn. I love the idea of f5. Queen h7 check looks oh so scary, but the king slides to f6 to safety. So maybe it is f5, a difficult move to play when the responsibility is in your hands. We're commentators, we can suggest whatever we want.
Exactly. And Priyanka is down to 1 minute and 40 seconds. I think she has to play faster because more critical positions will arise on the board soon. This is not the only critical position that she will face. Bishop d6.
Okay, the engine says black is still better. She protects her knight. She also threatens the g3 square if that queen ever slides back. Excuse me, the knight can move out the way with a discovery against that queen. So I like that move, bishop d6.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks pretty good too. Yeah, bishop d6, and now Katrina has to think how to proceed with this position because this is not easy. With one less piece on the board, will the attack be enough for her?
I mean, Irene, I'm looking at queen h7, king f6. I don't see the follow-up. It's one check. And I think for many viewers at home, we think check leads to checkmate. That's not always the case. In fact, checking the king towards the center will be helpful for the king. There's more room to keep running towards the queen side and to safety. So I probably wouldn't give that check, but I don't see what to do because black's next move is rook h8, and then it's the white king that is going to be under fire.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, and the more I see it, the more I like this bishop d6 as well because, as you mentioned, queen h7 was the idea, and it also prevents knight e4. Imagine if the bishop was on c5 after queen h7, king f6. There is knight e4, might happen on the board.
Right, but as you pointed out, the bishop on d6 blocks the rook's access to
Yep.
the queen. I know I drew a bunch of arrows, but the point is the rook usually wins a showdown with the queen, and Kateryna Lagno, she's gone. We don't see her on screen anymore. Her camera is off. Her connection might be gone as well.
Yeah, that's a fatal mistake. Okay, she's on. There's some glimpse that she was on.
Yeah, they put up a photo of her. Thank you to our great production team putting up that photo of Kateryna. But in all seriousness, she's down to 30 seconds. She's also worse on the board. So I know she has connection issues, but at this stage of the game, Priyanka has been playing perfectly. There was a bishop sacrifice that didn't pan out for Kateryna, and now it looks like Priyanka's ready to take the full point. It doesn't matter how she gets the point. As long as she secures it, she'll go up 1-0 in the match.
Wow, yeah, exactly. And she's back. So apparently we have a move on the board, bishop f4. We still haven't got the video of Kateryna on the screen, but there is bishop f4.
Okay, so going after this knight, queen g3 is renewed as an option. I like the plan here, and I'm just wondering, I mean, where is the knockout punch that white is even give white two free moves? Is there a knockout? I actually don't see it. So I'm still tempted to bring my rook to h8, and after the queen slides back, king f6, use the king, but no, knight d3 with an exclamation point.
Wow, look at that. Priyanka is very resourceful, even in such a position where we're thinking of defending ourselves. No, it is time for her to attack, and knight b3 was on the board with an exclamation mark. I really like the move.
And I like your idea, f5 now. Let's kick that queen off of the king's path, and she plays it. So, Irene, this has been a phenomenal game from Priyanka. Also, this white king has nowhere to run to with bishop takes h2 coming.
Ooh, that's true. These two bishops on b5 and d6 proven to be quite a killer. Bishop h2, king h1 is only move. And now, is there any good discovery for the bishop?
I'm going bishop f4 and queen takes knight on g5 and saying, you have no more pieces, you have no attack. It's black's game to win.
Yeah, bishop f4, there is knight h3. I think that's something that you have to watch out for.
Good call. I forgot about a backwards knight move. My apologies. I missed it. Oh, is the queen trapped?
That is possible. That is possible. Wow. Yeah. Okay, knight e6, but this is game over. The king will get mated. Bishop g1, for example. Knight takes e8, bishop g1. Okay, and Kateryna didn't allow that to happen on the board, but Priyanka won the first decisive game of their match.
I'm just showing that because that's a cool checkmate. You don't get to put your bishop next to the opponent's king like that. So Priyanka wins game one on time, but she's also completely winning. It's about to be checkmate on the board. So great start for Priyanka. Hopefully for Kateryna, her internet is improving, but her play will also need to improve because Priyanka, she controlled that game from start to finish.
Exactly. But as we remember, it was quite a good call by Kateryna to sacrifice, although she didn't really have a good follow-up. Maybe she was also distracted due to her internet connection. Maybe she already thought of some good plans, but everything was just blurred out because of her connection died.
It's the all-time question. Is it a sacrifice or a blunder? Even if it was correct when you did
Exactly.
it, if you don't follow up correctly, does that turn it into a blunder? I still am with you. It's a sacrifice. All jokes aside, it was a good idea. But right now, I think it's Priyanka who's deep in thought, spending 30 seconds in a standard opening.
Yeah, this is exactly what Danya mentioned yesterday. This is the only move, knight c6, that black shouldn't be playing. Okay, we are talking about the King's Indian expert, and Danya said knight c6, you shouldn't play in this position, but it's been played by Kateryna, and I'm sure after d5, knight e5, I don't really know the follow-up on this variation, but white is standing better. So after h3, I think the next plan will be playing f4 and not f3, just trying to strengthen the center. It looks very good, and the knight is kind of awkward there.
Yeah, h3 takes away the forward jump. f4 would have been tempting to many of our viewers, but the knight did have the g4 square. That's why the pawn went to h3. So black is now trying to chisel at white's center, which is extended quite far, but white says, I have great control thanks to these three pawns and the knight on c3. So Irene, in your experience, do you like these positions from the white side where you have the space or from the black side where you can strike back?
I like it from the white side. I've seen a line against King's Indian like this, different move order, but yeah, this looks just comfortable for white totally. Knight f3 is on the board, even the question mark. It's a very
Wow.
natural move to make, though.
And I think this is
Aha.
the downside of extending your pawn so far in the opening is this e4 pawn would like to have a pawn on f3 defending it. We like pawn chains because pawn chains are only as strong as their base pawn. And here, the e4 pawn is all alone. So if you take with a c pawn, here comes rook e8. If you take with the e pawn, and guess what? Here comes rook e8.
Right. I'm just trying to understand this position. Maybe it would have been better for white to take on e6 first, de, fe, and then knight f3. In that way, you don't have a semi-open line on the e file.
That's true. So in other words, there would have been a pawn on e6 and no pawn on d5. But she does defend the e4 pawn right now. And the question is, can black continue building up pressure against it? I like a move, like I was going to say knight b6. She goes c6 right after the center. But I think this gives white the tempo that's needed to get out of danger.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the problem when you're playing shorter term control. Sometimes you want to be practical and untangle all your problems. But I think for Kateryna, she has to be a bit more patient and then try to play some principal chess, developing her pieces first before trying to decide whether she has to attack the center by playing c6 or not. Because now I don't really like her pawn structure. c6 and d6 looks like kind of loose.
It does. And speaking of loose pieces, the bishop on e3 is loose here. There might be some kind of tactic with pawn d5 and after e5. I don't think I can take on e5, so that looks like it gives white a solid framework in the center. But knight d5? It's too complicated.
Yeah, look at the e-file bar for the past 5 or 7 moves, Robert. It's just going up and down, up and down. The moment that I said white is better, the e-file bar doesn't agree with me. The moment I said black is better, now actually now the e-file bar agrees with me. So it's kind of like still a roller coaster, even in the earlier stage of the match.
Yeah, the eval bar is waking up. We're waking up. Kateryna's internet is waking up. So all things are going in the right direction. There's that knight d5 idea that we were talking about. The bishop on e3 is loose here. That looks like a free knight. And then you realize the bishop drops. And that's a very important bishop because your king safety relies on the dark square control.
Exactly, and I know for a fact that Kateryna is a player who likes a pair of bishops. So I think this whole idea was set up by her just to get after her opponent's bishop. But this is no other bishop. The bishop on e3, as you mentioned, is a very important bishop. It controls many good dark squares, and with the advanced pawns on e4 and f4, yes, this bishop is very necessary to have. And I think White cannot afford to lose it, but I don't see any follow-up in White's position. I think at some point she has to give it up.
Yeah, because bishop f2, there might just be knight takes f4. Thank you for your pawn that's extended quite far in front of your king. So the bishop has no more squares. And knight takes d5. Well, this knight can just take back and go after the bishop again. The bishop
Yep.
cannot be saved. You're right, Irene, and that means that Priyanka needs to figure out the best way to give up that bishop. The best way would not be bishop f3, knight takes, rook takes, because when there's a rook on e3 on that diagonal, there'll be a bishop d4 at the end. So you need to be very careful here if you're Priyanka.
Ooh, totally, yes. And also another line, maybe if you take on b6, knight takes b6, okay, you kind of consolidated or solve your problem there a bit, and then maybe try to play something. Ooh, ed5 happened on the board, and after queen e3, king h1. Maybe Priyanka is thinking to exploit the fact that the rook on e8 is hanging, but now bishop f5, everything is protected.
And everything's coming with the tempos, a check against the king, then a check against the queen. I'm already looking at bishop takes h3. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like, does it work? But that does give white a turn to move this bishop out of the way. The black queen is staring at a rook. That's bad news. And whoa, she doesn't.
Oh, now it's just bishop b5. This is exactly what I was talking about before. The rook on e8 now is hanging because queen is already moved to c1. You don't really have any more tactical idea with queen takes e1, which possible before.
Wow, it's a whole rook. I mean, I was thinking, oh, it's an exchange. Maybe she'll have some chances. No, she's losing an entire rook down on e8. This is the worst start imaginable for Kateryna Lagno.
Yeah, I feel for her. Yeah. I mean, also she has more time on the clock. She shouldn't have missed something like this. This is for me, and I think for her class, this is a bit too elementary to miss.
And do you think it's because she sort of forgot that the queen dropped back to c1 to defend this rook? Because if this queen had moved elsewhere, say on b3, we would have two attackers against the rook on e1. We'd sacrifice our queen for two rooks. So I'm trying to understand her blunder better. It's hard to make sense of because she's so strong. But I don't know. I mean, I just can't quite grasp what she was thinking there.
Yeah, I think this is just a total blind spot. Yeah, she just completely missed it and didn't expect that bishop b5 is a good discovery for white.
Okay, so she goes queen g3. She's keeping bishop takes h3 available. She has some attacking chances. Oh, and bishop takes e8. Taking a free rook is the wrong decision somehow.
Right, and now white has to defend g2 because white cannot afford having the perpetual there. Okay, rook e2. I think white just consolidated well. So unfortunately, after rook takes e8, you can take it back with a check. So it's not a very good deflection.
That's such an important feature of the position. That's check against the king. Otherwise, rook takes e8, and we might be talking about an advantage for black, but that would be a check to the black king. You don't have time to checkmate white on g2. And if that's the case, I'm not seeing the attack anymore for black. Maybe you just have to say, I know I'm down a rook, but I'll have counterplay just going after the king in the long term.
Exactly. You have bishop e6, I was about to say it, because you have queen h4 followed by bishop b4. I think this is your last hope to have something on the game because you're just simply a rook down at the moment. If you don't have this type of tactics, I think Kateryna would have resigned already, but she saw there's still something that she can work on the board, so she went for it.
And look at white's clock, 25 seconds. Bishop e6 is a very good find by you and by Kateryna both. Queen h4, bishop d4 check, that's going to hurt, but it doesn't lead to checkmate. So maybe you can, in fact, bring your bishop back. I know it looks scary, but you can bring your rook to f2 at the end. No, she goes queen e1, a queen trade. Speaking of safe kings, without queens on the board, the white king is fully safe.
Exactly, but now it gives chances for Kateryna to get. That's a nice. That's a nice intermezzo.
I love that move. You take a pawn for your troubles. You were going to lose the bishop anyway, and that was a key pawn because rooks need open files. Irene, that could change the game completely in Priyanka's favor.
Yeah, and now I think it's everyone's games at the moment. It looks like really winning for Priyanka, but even though the e-file bar still favors Priyanka at the moment, but I think the situation has improved a lot for Kateryna.
And she plays a6. The good news is that
Yeah.
Priyanka's in time trouble. The bad news is the knight is jumping up the board, and now this other knight may jump into the center. I feel like this is going in white's direction.
Yeah, I don't really cannot wrap my head around this A6 move. Like, what does it do? I think at some point I just want to get my rook out, or maybe I hope it's not internet connection again.
B3! And she's hitting the bishop, and she wants rook B2 at the end, winning a piece.
Wow, wow. I think Katya has missed so many things in this game, and not only in this game, in the previous game as well. Wow, what is going on?
Brilliant move from Priyanka. I see it get one exclamation point. I have the power. I'm going to do this. Where is this brilliant? I'm giving that 2 exclamation points. I didn't see that coming. She's giving up another pawn, and the bishop is under attack right now to win a piece. This is seriously amazing play from Priyanka Nutaki. She sees everything.
She sees everything, and if you see such a tactic within maybe less than a second, it shows that how sharp you are as a player. And this is actually a trademark of all the Indian youngsters. So this is why earlier in the match I said it's going to be a close match, and now it looks like Priyanka is just demolishing Kateryna.
Wow, and that's actually bodes well for Priyanka's chance in the bullet portion. If she's finding moves like that in 1 second, and if she can convert this advantage, oh, look at this. There might be a smothered checkmate type of position if this bishop moves away. She moves to b3, but rook takes d3 should be good.
Right.
Sacrifice your rook there and deliver that checkmate.
Right. Yeah, now you just go after the bishop, and I think you can take on d3, and then, yeah, this is game over.
Yeah, she's going after that bishop. And by the way, both players down to 2 seconds, so you need to be careful not to lose on time. And as I say that,
Yep.
It looks like Kateryna Lagno loses on time. Priyanka Nutaki wins her second straight game.
Wow, what a start by Priyanka. This is amazing. And then how she played all the games as well. She won in all tactical matters. So it means Kateryna has to watch out if she goes into some complication, if she goes into some complex lines, she has to watch out because Priyanka has been very, very sharp today.
She has indeed, and we're getting this position once again. Priyanka did win the first game, but Kateryna uncorked a bishop sacrifice on h7 in that one. So we'll see how this one goes. And I see you all in chat, so please keep getting involved. We're featuring your chats. Any questions you have, we'd be glad to answer them. But yeah, we're happy you're here, and you should be here to stay because this one currently 2-0 in Priyanka's favor. It promises to be a good battle.
Yes, exactly. And we see another knight h4 on the board. Ooh, inviting the Greek sacrifice again. Robert, are we seeing the same position?
This is the problem when you don't have another game the next day. You're playing all these games in a row. Kateryna hasn't had time to analyze this, so she's probably nervous considering she lost that first game. What do you think, Irene? Will she be brave enough to take on h7 again?
I have no clue at all, but I might take my guess. Oh, she didn't. She didn't go for the sacrifice again. Okay, bishop f4. This is a solid looking move, but yeah, I was dying to see bishop h7 happen on the board again.
Yeah, I feel like we could have learned a lesson about this line in the French with bishop takes h7, Greek sacrifice, Greek gift. And here bishop f4 makes perfect sense, developing the bishop, protecting that pawn on e5. And that knight on b5 is going to stay there. You mentioned this idea in the first game. a4 is available to white in the near future. So I feel like white has good control over the center for now, and I do prefer her position.
Yes, it's looking better for white for sure. I think this is Priyanka's forte. Whenever the game went into some tactical and complex situation, I think she's gonna be very good at it. And I think Kateryna already learned her lesson, and she's going to go for a more solid approach.
And you say white's going for a solid approach. Maybe black can play f6. It's a risky move. Ben Feingold says never play it. But there is already ideas with queen h5, going after the black king. So Irene, f6 is a standard French move. Do you think it works here?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it works, but you just ooh. Or maybe after queen h5, you can just simply stop it by playing f5.
Yeah, just close down the bishop. That it's an odd decision tree. f6, then f5 second. Why don't you play f5 right away? But maybe the queen is misplaced on h5, I ask with no certainty.
Queen h3. So Kateryna chose the other square to hit on h7. Okay, now this is a big decision for Priyanka. g6, and now there is no more sacrifice on g6 because the queen is on h3.
The difference every single move makes. If that queen were on h5, bishop takes g6 would be at least a draw for white. It said the queen's on h3. So Priyanka, she's opening up the f-file, whose king is more weak? Is it the black king without a pawn on the f file, or is it the white king where all of black's pieces are barreling down towards the f2 square?
Yeah, I think Black managed to consolidate the position better right now because the knight on b5 is a good-looking knight, but currently without the pawn on e5, it doesn't really have like good idea to go to d6 or to d4. Now it's only looking good, but it doesn't really do anything. So yeah, I'm a bit torn about this knight on b5 right now.
So you want to put it on g5 is what you're saying. I can do
Or
that. I have the mouse.
exactly, that would be much much better.
Well, e5 is clearly what Priyanka's thinking about because that opens up an attack against the queen and against the bishop here. But you're not winning the piece. She does play e5. Queen h6 is available, given the exclamation point. Checkmate was threatened. But I have to say, I like black's position suddenly. I liked it for white a few moves ago, and now I'm looking at this and I feel like black has the strong center, and yet the eval bar disagrees and says white is the side with the better chances.
Yeah, I think it's because due to the king's safety, and now I like the pawn better on e6 because then black could be more flexible in trying to hit on the f file. But now black has to somehow switch it to the center, supporting these pawns. Otherwise, there's no use of having the pawn on d5 on e5 if you don't support it to go any further. And now after bishop e3, yeah, it is a big question now. If you take on e3, f e3, you're just opening the f file, and then the rook on f1, which is not doing anything before. Now it's becoming a very good rook. So if bishop retreats back to, let's say, e7, you always have this knight c7 idea and hitting on a8 and d5. So yeah, it's a big choice for Priyanka right now.
And knight c7 is a huge threat. So queen g7, she plays it. I was wondering, can you just trade the queens and bring your knight to c7 to win the d5 pawn? And this is exactly what's happening. But maybe there are tactics with a rook d8, a well-timed rook d8, say we trade rooks and play rook d8, that if the knight takes on d5, there might be some kind of discovery against it if our rook is sitting on that square.
Yeah, there might be some discovery, but thanks to the setup all the pieces, you can put e4 at some point if you want to. But here, Kateryna is thinking whether to take the rook, the bishop, or the rook, but she chose the rook to take it. And after rook d8, yeah, I think you are right, Robert. There might be some discovery, and Priyanka will be able to gain her pawn back.
Knight c7, that's a tricky move because you're attacking the bishop, but bishop takes a2, and unlike Kateryna's bishop that was in trouble over there, that's a pawn you can grab. There are a lot of tactics at play here. So I'm looking at this position. I think that black has found a good way to hang in this game, but I am worried about the long-term prospect of some of black's pawns. They're sort of all over the place.
Exactly. Yeah, but well, I think it's looking, it's looking like quite an even position, and I think Priyanka is happy to have it right now because it looks a bit loose before, but now at least some pieces are already traded off, and it's easier to think about. And now bishop d5, and you're going to play c4, and then the bishop is just going to be a pretty good bishop on d5.
Yeah, that bishop is awesome there. And also, this knight on c6 doesn't really have the best future. What's it doing? It's just sitting there. If I take it, I also ruin your pawn structure even more, but there are limited pieces on the board. So it's a tough call. Is white threatening bishop takes c6? This is actually what I recommend for viewers. Put a position like this on the board. And she went knight b8, likely afraid of bishop takes c6 to hurt her pawn structure. But I would recommend putting a position like that on the board and trying to analyze it.
Yeah, that would be a very instructive position for everyone to learn. And back to the game, I think I was about to say that this is exactly the type of position that Kateryna should be aiming at every of her game because this is her forte. She is a very good technical player. She has a very good position understanding as well. But if you go for some tactical, it's just giving her opponent some chance to counter-strike. But this is exactly this is how Kateryna usually won her game.
And she's doing everything right. She brings her rook to d1. That way her rook is ready to go after some of these queenside pawns. Those are loose over there. I love the way that Priyanka's playing until e4. I don't love that because it overextends the pawn. It puts it in a light square. So if the rooks are ever traded, this bishop can help win the pawn, whereas the pawn e5 kept the white king out in the event of a rookless endgame.
Yes, If it was a normal day at office, I believe Kateryna would be able to squeeze this position into a victory. But this is speed chess, and she has also some trouble with her internet connection. So I'm not too sure anymore. But again, Kateryna is a very strong player. This should be she should be able to play this by hand.
And why Irina is so confident in Kateryna's chances, you look at the board, but you also look at the clock. 2+ minutes for her,
Wow.
34 seconds for Black. And Black has no ideas. G5 was played. There's nowhere to go for Black. You're frozen. And White can at some point start throwing pawns forward if she so chooses. But you have to time it well if you're Kateryna. You don't want to trade off too many pawns because when we talk about rook and bishop versus rook or those types of positions might be a theoretical draw.
Exactly. Yes, and yes, pawn majority on the queen side is something that Kateryna will try to convert into victory because this is her only hope in winning. Even if she gets the pawn on e4, if she doesn't convert the other side of the board well, the game might end up with a draw. So she has to play very precisely. I don't really like this g4 move. It's a bit too committal, but she might not have time to think.
And Priyanka definitely doesn't have time to think. Down to 16 seconds. She went h4. She wanted to solidify a weakness for White, but she can't get to it. Her knight needs desperately to get to f4. The knight does not have that path.
Exactly. And now after rook e5, c4 is on the board. Yeah, I'm just going. I'm very impatient in how to see Kateryna tries to get the passer. Okay, it happened just like that. It's a bit unexpected, but okay, now she's going to hit on e4 and gain an extra pawn, and potentially the pawn on g5. It will be another or the next target of attack.
Black needs just one more piece. There was a pin here if you could attack the bishop, but you don't have more pieces. The king can slide to safety as it does. Black is only down one pawn, and with a knight against a bishop and all these pawns on dark squares, maybe there's an opportunity to try to defend. The bishop can't attack them, but that c pawn is very dangerous in the long run.
Yeah, and in this position, you cannot improve your position without moving the bishop. But now the drawback is the rook comes to the back rank. This is what I was a bit afraid of. It's all pure calculation right now and intuition, or maybe you cannot calculate, so you're going to rely on your intuition on how to deal in this position.
And 2 seconds for Priyanka. She made a quick move, rook c1. It wasn't the correct choice. And now instead of winning a pawn, she's using all of her remaining resources to stop the c pawn. But has she really stopped it? The answer is no.
Yeah, I don't think so. With the help of king and the rook, this pawn can be safely going to c7, and then everything will be traded off. Yes, and white has too many other pawns to be promoted later in the endgame.
And 1.7 seconds remain on Priyanka's clock. She needs to have a move ready. And if I'm Kateryna, I might even play king b6, and she might lose on time. And Priyanka gets the move off. So clearly a pretty decent bullet player.
Right, yes. And after king b6, I don't see a way to stop the pawn. After c7, what is your idea? Is it trading everything off and then king e5, king f4, going after the h3 pawn? That is also possible.
Oh, but look at this wonderful technique from Kateryna. She takes the knight, and the reason she did it is now the rook has to sacrifice for the pawn. White is up a full bishop, and your point was well taken there, that if you played c7 too soon, the knight would take, and then the rook would create problems that black rook would have survived.
Exactly. Wow, what a very convincing technical win by Kateryna Lagno. This is her first win against Priyanka, and I think I can feel it. She is coming back to the match. She's coming back to the spirit of the game, and we are seeing another King's Indian on the board, and they are repeating the federation again.
And I think if you're Priyanka, you need to recognize that you have to take on e6. That was a big mistake in the opening last game. She got in trouble because of that. So f4, knight d7, and as you pointed out, she needs to take on e6 first. No.
Yeah, she didn't do it. It's these things, Robert, that if you already won a game like this, is there any reason for you to change it? No. So, we're coming down to some psychological decision here, even though objectively DE was a better move, but Priyanka won the second game in the same manner. So there is no need I think she felt there's no need for her to change anything on that variation.
And that's the problem when you don't have a break. You don't have your coach texting you, or you don't press the game review button to see what you can do better. Say for Kateryna, After the break, I promise you both players will look at this exact variation because Kateryna had the advantage, and for Priyanka, she shouldn't get into this. And for Kateryna, she needs to play a little bit more accurately at that moment so she can actually get the upper hand.
Exactly, yes. In this position after queen e7, in the previous game, it was knight d2. Are we going to see bishop d3 on the board? Because you want to get a hold of the bishop e3 sooner than it was on the previous game. Because maybe after knight d2, bishop on e3 is still hanging. But after bishop d3 and put the rook on e1, I think the position is safer.
It's a really good point, and Priyanka has paused because she recognized her position was getting bad after this knight d2. She was retreating a little too much. Bishop d3, she plays it, rook e1. That's the idea, and it says the position is about level. Both sides have their chances here. It's a messy position, but I really like the improvement from white side with bishop d3.
Yes, exactly. And now I think it is time for Katra to be a bit more calm and try to prepare everything. Maybe bishop b7. This is a calm looking move, preparing maybe for d5 strike, knight b6 with a question mark.
I think White's play is simple. Irene, we're looking at this. All of White's pieces are compact and doing something. I just put them all in green here, and it feels like they're all are in good position. Black's piece is a bit scattered across the board. Watch out for an e5 or an f5. I do prefer White's chances.
Exactly. I like white as well. This is the type of setup that you usually get also in the Sicilian as white. You just want to get all your pieces, all your minor pieces on the third rank, c3, f3 with the pawn on f4 and e4. Has proven to be a very solid and promising setup. And now we are seeing it from the King's Indian opening. So I think Priyanka is just playing some principled chess right now.
And I'm looking at the clock, and Priyanka has over 4 minutes on the clock. Kateryna down, nearing 3 minutes herself. And I think the position is easier to play for white. We see bishop e6 played, f5 comes to mind, knight d4 with a tempo against the bishop and the pawn c6. So many ideas for white, and I'm struggling to find even a single move for black. And look at this, b3. What a natural, strong move, taking away c4 from this knight, and now black is on the clock again.
Yeah, I really like this move b3 because Priyanka is just playing against her opponent's idea. She doesn't really need to come up with her own ideas. She just has to anticipate, and this will give Katrina some hard time to think about because now she's down to 2 minutes and 40 seconds, just less than a minute than Priyanka. So wow, Priyanka is doing well again after the first loss on the third round.
Such a nice position for white. f5 is an idea. e5 is an idea. Bishop f2, slow playing it to go to h4. And d5, another question mark. And I think this is strategically a bad decision. And I'm also wondering if there are some tactics with f5 available to white. But I mean, that's a big moment here for Priyanka.
Yes, yes, and she has the time on the clock. I think she has to calculate this out, whether f5 works or whether e5 works, because it is a big choice for her. There are so many things to be calculated, so many possibilities as well. Whether the bishop goes to d4, for example, is it necessary to put it there? It looks like a very good looking move, but I haven't calculated much further.
And e5 plays, she finds the best move, which was your first instinct. So e5 first, f5, I don't know, that looks pretty strong, but the e5 pawn then gets a little bit looser. But you force black to take with the g pawn. So you're making black's king less safe. It's an attacking move. The other option, knight d4, looks strong as well, going after the c6 pawn, and she plays knight d4. She's playing superb chess right now.
Yeah, exactly. I really like how she plays. And now, what to do after c5? Do you take on e6 or do you move it somewhere else? Possibly to. No, you have to take on e6, otherwise, there's d4 and it is a fork.
Right, if this knight moves backwards, d4 hurts. So knight takes e6 looks promising. Maybe there is knight c6, the queen, like they
Ooh,
goes to
knight
f8, and then
c6.
knight b5. And she plays it. She's going forward.
Yeah.
She is not taking, she's just taking the initiative. And that d6 square, that c7 square, these are nice places for the knight.
Yeah. Now I like it so much better. Yes, with this idea of bishop takes c5 after knight b5. Yeah, knight b5. Definitely, it's two exclamation marks.
We'll see if she plays it. She could also look in the other direction. f5 might be tempting, going after the black king. I'm still worried about your point. D4 is a threat that black has, and she plays F5. She went in the wrong direction, but we'll see if it pays off for her.
Right. I'm just wondering what did she miss after knight b5? Yeah, I think she's worried about d4. But now after f5, do you take on f5? But even if you do, yeah, I'm still looking for the attack from the other side of the board. But now it's looking still all right for white, I guess.
Uh-oh. Except mistakes usually come in pairs. She went f5 and then bishop f4 to defend her e5 pawn, but the engine hates it and c4. I wasn't even looking there, but queen c5.
Queen c5 is the idea. Yeah. Wow. What a fork. The knight was okay. I think knight c6 was one exclam, and now it's no longer good for white anymore. The knight on c6 is doomed.
What a find from Kateryna. I wasn't looking in that side of the board. I was worried about the black king, but she says, I am calm, cool, and collected, and I'm going to collect this knight on c6. That is check to the king and to the knight. So Irene, suddenly that knight has wandered too far, and I don't see a way back.
Exactly. And now is it time to take on f5 first before queen c5? Because I'm a bit worried of h7 pawn, or maybe, maybe my worriness was baseless. But okay, Kateryna took on f5. I think queen takes f5 is in order, and queen c5 just played instantly by Kateryna. And after queen takes c6, Kateryna will be one extra piece up.
And she plays bishop e3, does Priyanka, because f7 drops, but the king safely scurries on over to the corner. There are no more checks against it. I think that the extra piece is really what tells the tale of this position. The black king is not in harm's way.
Exactly. I'm just trying to find if white has some other compensation. But since this attack on f7, followed by king h8, doesn't really looking well, and then doesn't really have good follow-up, I think Kateryna should be putting this game into her pocket, because this is just going to be another comeback by her.
And I think Priyanka needs to get tricky somehow. I don't think knight b5 works. She plays queen h5. There might be a rook f6 at some moment, a sacrifice there. You need to be very careful if you're Kateryna. The good news for her is she's the one up on the clock. It's Priyanka down under a minute.
Right. I think the good idea in this position that is after, okay, CB, AB, you just want to trade as many pieces as you want. And Kateryna played it. Rook F8. If you could simplify the position, then there is no hope for Priyanka anymore to even give an attack.
If this rook were on e2, there would be rook f6, but this rook is hanging back here with check. But if this rook were defended, this would be a sick tactical idea. Black would have to avoid taking it, but a rook sitting on f6 would be frustrating. It just doesn't work with a rook loose on e1.
Right. Rook takes f8, rook takes f8, and e5. At some point you will take it, but this is not the right moment for sure. If I were Kateryna, I would try to find my way to try to trade even more. I don't know, queen f5 maybe? But that looks a bit loose because the
e-pawn can start pushing. Like this is a passed pawn. It just is blockaded for the moment. And I think that Kateryna needs to find two accurate moves. She finds this two accurate moves, she wins the game. Rook f5 seems good. But this is some looseness in the position with knight c7 on tap.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I really want to move my b6 knight, but there is no good square to go right now. And do I need to worry about my a7 pawn? Do I really need it in the end? Oh, what is going on? Queen g6 is a mistake?
Maybe take an e6? I think that passed pawn is going to hurt black.
Wow, yeah, this is what I was afraid of. If you just try to simplify like that without taking into account about this e-pawn, then woo, this is happening and the table has turned.
Because knight f6, bishop takes f6, and then I push e7. The best black can do would take back and take this pawn, but white gets her piece back, and suddenly this e-pawn, it's doing the damage, and it's hard to stop.
Exactly. This is what I was talking about, Robert. If you go into some tactical line, see how sharp Priyanka is. It's just a pity that Kateryna couldn't find any good simplification in the position. Maybe she was a bit too rushed in trying to trade off the queens. But she has to a bit calm down and then see other things even more carefully.
And now we see an endgame here where white is even by material. Rook e7 check.
Rook e7 takes. Oh, okay. So now if it's knight e2 or knight e2 rook e4, yeah, I think it's fine.
92 is so close to being winning. Rook e4, the only move. She didn't play 96. She takes the knight right away. She just says, I cannot possibly lose this game. I think she had some better winning chances, maybe keeping the knights on the board, but she doesn't want to lose. She wants to keep her lead in the match, and white is a pawn ahead.
Yes, yes. And okay, so this is a technical drawn position. I think both players should be, yeah, I think should be, I was about to say like shaking their hands, but this is online game. You're not shaking your hands.
I'm looking at the clock because Kateryna down to 8 seconds. She's doing this well. At some point, Priyanka should throw the pawn forward. She plays g4, step 1, and throw rook d7. Go to the 7th rank and threaten a checkmate attack.
Yeah, exactly. And well, this happened too yesterday between Gunina versus Harika, where Gunina just removed the rooks, and yeah, unfortunately the rook moved to the wrong square and got captured by Harika's rook. So it's very important not really pre-moving in this type of situation.
She goes rook e8. She's not setting up the mating net, but at some point, king f3. Don't go. She's going to repeat a bunch of times. The good thing for Priyanka, though, is she's wasting time on the overall match clock, and I think the quicker time controls are going to be pretty good for her. So if she can make it to there are fewer 5+1 games, I know she has the lead right now, but Kateryna being the higher rated player, I think Kateryna is the one who wants more long games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with this draw, Priyanka still is leading the match, and okay, finally it's drawn by repetition, and we are moving on to the 5th game of their 5-minute portion.
Yeah, they get a break beforehand. So Priyanka, you see here on screen, she can breathe maybe for the first time in a while, but she has the lead right now. A surprising sensation is Priyanka Nutaki, who came through the qualifiers and now leads the #1 overall seed, the reigning champion, Kateryna Lagno, by a score of 2.5, 1F. Irene, it's been super impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive. It's very good start for Priyanka. I'm just going to be very excited on what she has more on the table.
So Priyanka and Kateryna both get a little bit of a break, and so they will get some rest. We'll join them. But before we do, want to shout out a special event coming your way. For all you watching this, there's much more chess to be followed. Harvard Chess takes on a new challenge this Wednesday. Chess Kids superstars Tanya Nawumi and Alice Lee. Which will prevail in this hand and brain match? Youth or experience? Tune into Chess Kids streams to catch this exciting battle of young talent. Use the command Harvard in chat to learn all about the event. Irene and I will take a quick break. When we return, it's more from the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship in just a few.
Well, all my projects now somehow connected with chess because I qualified for the candidates tournament, and of course I'm looking forward to play it and to prepare for it, and of course but I'm also a mother of 4 children, and of course it's a huge part of my life, and so I like when I don't study chess, I'm busy with my children, and you can imagine it's all day work, let's say. I don't think that it's my husband, no, because well, he supports me, but I would say that I would like to feel, I don't feel it so much, like maybe I expect too much from him, but maybe my children, yes. My youngest son, okay, let's say, because he gets really upset when I lose a game and he's very, very happy when I win it. But okay, let's say my family, yes.
Welcome back to the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship. I'm Robert Hess. Alongside me is Irene Sukander. Irene, after the first break, we return with a lead for the number 8 seed, the lowest rated player in the field, the youngest player in the field. Are you as surprised as I am?
See, I'm not that surprised. I mean, this is actually what I expected since earlier. So, but we have our first break, and maybe the players got some tips from their seconds or their coaches, and maybe they were able to check their own variations. I'm expecting a slight change to their opening approach or their variation approach. So you'll see.
We often do see that in the Speed Chess Championship format. You take a break, you look at your openings, you fix those mistakes or change your variation altogether. And the stakes are high here because Kateryna Lagno, she won last year's event. She's the reigning WSCC champion. She wants to win again. And for Priyanka, honestly, probably didn't even expect to be here. But now that she's here, if she wins this match, she moves on to the semifinals. She'll have over $4,000 in prize money. She'll be a very happy player.
Exactly. Yes, I think. Well, she is just following those others very talented prodigies from India. We see Vaishali, which is going to play tomorrow against Kosteniuk, and there are also Divya, for example. So India has seen a lot of good prodigies, and I think Priyanka Nutaki is a little bit lesser known name in the chess world, but I think she's just making her mark in the chess world.
She is indeed, and she's making her mark in this match. She currently leads as the next game is underway. And, well, it's okay that we skipped the opening because we've been here before. This is the French defense that Priyanka keeps trotting out. And we see an exchange on d4 in this game. So that's different because in previous games, White was taking this pawn on c5 eventually, and the knight was going up to b5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, already on the 8th move or 7, there is already a change to the repertoire in this game. So we're starting off afresh again.
And we see the point of that early bishop d7. The rook slides to c8. That's an open file, the only open file on the board. But White has developed completely naturally. And here comes the queen. Is this pawn going to hang? Or is White going to protect that and maybe lose the b2 pawn? These are difficult decisions.
Yeah, I'm trying to calculate what could be the move here for White. Will you just protect d4 naturally by be3, but the b2 pawn will hang. If you play knight b5, there is a6. So yeah, how to deal with this situation?
Knight a4 comes to mind, but now you're putting your knight on the rim. It's a little bit awkward, and that knight could be loose eventually with the bishop staring at it from d7. So it's a difficult moment for Kateryna. She plays rook b1. That earned a question mark. Irene, correct me if I'm wrong. Knight takes d4 is the point that the king is on h1, so maybe there's no knight takes something with check. There might be some tactics, but it doesn't seem right to me.
It doesn't seem right to me either because, well, it is very important to note that if you want to take on d4 right now, you have to take it with the c knight, because if you take it with the f knight, there is bishop e3 and bishop c5, you have this knight a4. So it's a little subtlety, but it's a very, very important subtlety.
Just drawing that position up for everybody, that this fork at the end and the knight on d4 will be lost. So that is not bound to happen, but knight c takes d4. There isn't even knight a4 available because the bishop stares in that direction. So Kateryna seems to just blundered a pawn in the center. And, whoa, what are we looking at?
No, I think this is just a desperate move because I don't see the point of g4. I mean, you can just take either one, e2 or f3, and then simply move your knight away and enjoy the pawn up.
She takes the bishop. I think that's a good idea. It's an open board or an opening board, so I feel like you want the bishop pair. And if you take this knight on f5, good for you. This knight takes on c3, and the rook on b1 is hanging back here. You have to take this knight on e2. This is clearly just gone wrong for White.
Yeah, I think Kateryna just overlooked with the idea of queen b6, even though this is the most natural, typical idea in French defense that queen b6 with the knight on c6 and f5, you just want to pressurize on d4, and knight takes e2, and now f5 knight will just move away maybe to e7, and I don't see any follow-up for White in order to keep attacking.
And knight e7 delays Black's development, but as you said, there's no attack for White. You need this pawn already up the board. It's slow. And so
Mhm.
this knight can move back and move out the way. The bishop will develop. I feel like Priyanka's spoiled for choice here. Even knight h6 is available. You're not afraid of the double
Mm.
pawns over here, but she goes with your choice. I think that's the smarter play.
Yes, exactly. And the knight will jump to c6 and developing the bishop. And since there is no light square bishop that might hit on h7, black could already safely plan to do some short castle.
And that's why knight f4 is played. You said black wants a short castle. If you played knight g6, this knight comes out to
Mm.
h5, stopping this bishop from developing. So it's some tricky play here from Kateryna. She lost a pawn, but it's not so easy for black to complete her development.
Yeah, Kateryna is just so tricky. Yeah, even when she's down upon like this, I think it's even more when she's down upon. She has to find all the tricks available on the board to compensate this pawn. But knight g6 is on the board right now. If you take it, it might open up the file of the rook on h8. So of course, knight h5 is more natural move to make, and delaying the bishop on f8 to develop because g7 is hanging.
I'm very tempted to play d4. I know I'm giving up my extra pawn, but I'm also opening up this diagonal towards the white king. It's a very natural looking idea. And if you take with the knight on d4, then I take your pawn on e5. So it's a sort of a pawn trade. I think d4 might be a nasty strike to meet in blitz.
I see. Yeah, but what about bishop b5 hitting on the rook on f1? Because you have to go rook e1, otherwise there's bishop e2. And after rook e1, I might go bishop b4. So developing with a tempo. And if you take on g7, I'll just move my king to f8. And that way, black is attacking both the knight on g7 and the rook on e1.
I like what you just proposed. That was a great line. She plays rook g8. She doesn't want to give the pawn back, but your line, it was more aggressive, and this line is more safe. So caution sometimes is good, but I liked your plan better because now black can never castle. It's not legal. You move both your rooks. That means your king is stuck where it is.
Yeah, well, that situation is quite tricky because it's not a very easy decision to make. Whether you want to give up this pawn, again, this is exactly your winning point, and is that the right time to give up the pawn? Well, you never know. Good calculation is needed, and they just simply don't have enough time to calculate thoroughly.
I like what Katerina is doing. She played a bad opening. She lost the pawn, but now she's up over a minute on the clock, and the position is anything but clear. This rook on g8, it does a passive job defending the g7 pawn. The rook on c8 is great, but the king on e8, that's the problematic piece. That piece is in the center, and it's not going to leave the center anytime soon. And I think that maybe bishop e3 here, just to try to secure some of the dark squares in the center, might be a good option for white.
Yeah, I think you have to keep that bishop there because if that bishop is off the board, when black played king e7, I think black would be able to consolidate the position. Okay, ignoring the fact that black cannot castle anymore, but now black can just play king e7 and then connect both rooks, but exactly not at this point because there might be some check over g5 or something. It might be looking dangerous as well. And I don't know, with this bishop c5, is Priyanka looking to really take on f2, or maybe she was just trying to bluff?
She could be trying to bluff, but I'm looking at the screen there, and there's no Kateryna Lagno. Her connection, once again, is bad. And if I am Priyanka, I'm not trying to make a draw here. I'm not just repeating moves. D4 is probably good. I'm seeing the eval bar go down to -2.5 nearly. So D4 getting this bishop to the long diagonal on C6, that looks like it's going to hurt.
Mhm. Wow, yeah, it's a very good point, Robert. Yes, this idea of yours, I really like it. And maybe this is exactly the good timing to play bishop d4 and then bishop c6. But I think Priyanka just doesn't realize how bad the connection of Katrina on this game because yeah, she keeps repeating. If I were Priyanka as well, I wouldn't have repeated it.
She might be too focused on the chess, not looking at the
Mhm.
call that they're both on. And now, Katerina, she's up a minute on the clock. Priyanka dipping to a minute. I think she's more likely to make a draw because she's spending so much time.
Right.
Oh, and
Oh
she's
no, bishop takes e3. And after rook e3, what will be the follow-up? Maybe king e7. That's looking very natural to me.
I like king e7, and then for white, I probably queen d4 just to keep that bishop
Mm.
stuck on d7, not so active, and try to swing my rook to a3 at some point. But let's not forget, a2 is hanging. I didn't look in that direction all game, and she takes
Ooh,
it.
she took it. She took it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I didn't look at the direction as well. It's very rare to actually hang a pawn. Okay, so knight d4 is on the board, so Katrina keeps some complexity in the game, trying to exploit the fact that the black king is still in the center.
And white may play f4, f5 because the king is in the center. Throw all your pieces forward. But for now, white has an excellent blockade. Rook a1 or rook a3 come to mind going after this a7 pawn. So I feel like there are some chances for white, especially with Priyanka down to 15 seconds. She makes that move. Now she's 17.1, queen a4, offering a queen trade.
Right, yes, and Katrina cannot afford trading the queen, so she has to move the queen elsewhere. But still keeping an eye on d4 knight. So maybe she's limited to only queen d2 or queen d3.
Yeah, those two moves look natural. Queen d2, does that threaten to trap this queen? Like, this queen does not have many squares over here. So it's close to being trapped, but maybe it has this c4 square to run away to. But I'm nervous if I'm black. 10 seconds, she needs to make a move.
Wow, yeah, so 5 seconds left on the clock. Okay, Priyanka, try to move now. A6, and it is a question mark. It's a blunder. Try to figure out why. Maybe there is b3, because after b3 you have only queen a3 and then followed by b4.
Oh, b4, oh, f4.
Oh,
She's playing for a checkmate.
f4.
But 1 second left. She's barely making moves. Is Priyanka, but the position is, I think, turning in her favor. I know she's 2 seconds, but Irene, look at the king on h1. It's wide open here.
Right, but now after, ooh, it's a blunder and just giving a chance for Katrina to march on. Ah,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah,
Now technically Katrina is an exchange up, but can she convert this into a win?
it looks great for her. 3 seconds left, and look at this king e8. She's making moves just on the increment. f7 is about to fall. It looks like Katerina should take this game.
Wow, it looks like it. Yes, yes, yeah. So this is a very good lesson to learn. Even though your position was fine before, but with having lower on time, it might just
Oh,
distract the whole thing.
queen 67.
Oh,
Yes.
it might
Oh,
made in
oh,
three.
she missed it. We'll have to look at after. Okay, she wins on time, but that was a checkmate available there. I just want to
Right.
let's see if I can do it quickly. Queen e7 because of the
Yes.
oh, so close yet so far.
It's okay, Robert. We got your point. Yes, I think the chat also sees it. Yes, queen e7 followed by rook one f7, and it would have been a checkmate.
Yeah, that was a nasty end to the game, at least possible there. And whew, wow, it's a tied match. I'm like barely getting a handle of what's happening. Queen takes a2. That was just maybe a pawn that she shouldn't have grabbed.
Yeah. In that type of position, it's very important to solve your problem first before creating some more complexity like that. Because queen takes a2, you don't really need that pawn. What you need is to consolidate your rooks, consolidate your king, because your king was not safe at all.
So for Priyanka, who won a pawn early in that game, she couldn't convert her advantage. She must be feeling pretty negatively about how this match is trending. She was up 2 points to start. Now it's a tied match. And here in this game, it looks like Kateryna, she's getting aggressive, but Priyanka saying, I have a solid setup. I don't need to worry. I'm just going to develop my pieces.
Yes, I agree with you, but this can totally backfire because if we are talking about the playing styles of each player, we know that Priyanka is so good in open position and complexity and all these complicated lines, and now we're actually going to see probably what Kateryna Lagno is very good at. That just a technical a technical chess with lots of positional understanding in place.
But look at this opening. So we have to note that Priyanka started with c4 in this game and didn't play into the King's Indian. She changed up her opening system to play more quietly, but now she decides to strike with d4. She's a very healthy center. No pawn on f4 in this game, not any overextension, and that knight on c7, maybe not ideally placed. White is going to aim down the d file towards that backward pawn.
Yeah. I agree with you on this. Yes, on d6 is going to be the target of attack. Yeah, so far Priyanka's position is very fine, very healthy. All that she needs is just a castle, This is something that what she missed on the previous game. And now Kateryna already strike with d5, trying to exploit the fact that now the king is still in the center. Whether it is time for Priyanka to castle, I think she has to solve the center problem first.
This pawn is staring at two of white's pawns, and c takes d5. We know black will take back, and you're usually tempted to push up to e5. There may be ideas with knight e4. This might be difficult for some of our members watching this game to figure out. So I always recommend just pausing, bringing up this type of position and seeing it for yourself. But e5 now, it's a little bit more clear. Knight e4 might be available. The e5 pawn will be loose.
Exactly. Yes, yes. And yeah, Kateryna has timed it perfectly to strike in the center like that when the king is still on e1. It would be quite a different story if the king is already castled and nestled on g1, for example, because then Priyanka could bring all her reinforcements to the center. And like you mentioned, Robert, knight e4.
It's because of what you mentioned. This king is still in the center. That king, it needs to be safe. And now after knight takes e4, pawn takes e4, yes, this pawn is hanging here, but so is this pawn on e5. So both sides will pick up central pawns, and black is the happier player because the white king is not safe and sound.
Yes, and this is a very instructive position as well. We see the e-file bar is still even, but this position offers so many things to calculate and to understand. You cannot just simply solve it within like a few minutes. But again, the players don't have much time to think about. They have to have a practical approach to solve every position.
And we see the center has now opened up completely. If you castle kingside, watch out. Bishop takes h3 is hanging at the end of the diagonal. So I don't like white's position. I see it's equal according to the engines, but I feel like it's easier for black to play. Black's better developed with king safety. Black's king is just hanging out, whereas white's is stuck in the center. What would you do here, Irene? Would you castle queenside potentially?
Well, I wouldn't do that in my lifetime right now. Yeah, I would move my bishop back, or even I was thinking to just sacrifice the h3 by just short castle, bishop h3, and then move my rook to the center. I mean, I know I would be a pawn down, but at least I have some play in the center, and my bishop on e4 was sitting on b7. So black has to do something about it too. But yeah, bishop g2 might be a better reply in this position.
And knight e6, the great reply from Kateryna, just trading things off. White's king, even without queens on the board, will be worse than black's. If you castle queenside, this a2 pawn, this has been one of the themes of the day, hanging a2 pawns. So I would be very worried if I'm Priyanka here. She's lost a couple games recently. She's not in good shape in this position.
Right, yes. And the question is to trade off the queens or not. If you're not trading the queen, this position might just get more dangerous for white. But if you do trade the queen, white will have an inferior endgame due to the activity of these two pair of bishops on e6 and e5. They're just monsters.
They're hard to deal with because the b2 pawn will be loose if you trade queens, and the a2 pawn we already mentioned. The h3 pawn is still being targeted by that bishop. We have to note b7 and a7 from the white bishop. So many pawns are hanging, but you see the eval bar saying black is better because now this pawn and this pawn are both defended, and you can't do the same thing for white because the rook is hanging on a1.
Yes, I mean, this is exactly another instructive position to learn. Even though both sides have a pair of bishops, we can totally tell that only black can win this position because, again, activity always matters.
It always does. And rook a to b1, speaking of activity, giving up a2 to slide your rook back to a1 and win the pawn on a7. That would be a dream, but it's not going to work. There are tactics in black's favor, not to mention that the simple bishop f5, instead of being greedy right away, I'll be greedy a move from now by attacking your rook, kicking it, and winning the b2 pawn. This looks really, really nasty for Priyanka.
Exactly. I like this move of yours, bishop f5. It's just, you calmly attack the rook and then taking on b2 the next. Ooh, but Kateryna took it. Maybe she saw bishop c4, but it doesn't really work. Rook c1. Rook f c1. But rook f c1, bishop takes b2.
That's right. I just saw that too. The rooks were both hanging. So rook e1, and now there's a threat on this bishop. There's a threat on a7. If bishop b8 is your best move, you're walking passively until she takes b2, and now the activity that you spoke of, white is much happier.
Yeah, I agree. It's okay. This is some miss by Katrina because I believe you can really attack those two pawns without trading any of your pawns on the back rank on a7 or b6. So it's more like you will win those two pawns if you just play a more calmer chess and more strategical chess. And Katrina has all the time. She is still up 2 minutes 51 seconds, so she can think this all out.
And that's why I think she's probably going to win this game is because of her lead on the clock. 20 seconds for white, maybe rook b1 and bishop f1, ideas like that. But she's playing very cautiously. Is Priyanka down a pawn and now down 2 minutes and 20 seconds? Too much time.
Exactly. Yeah. It is very inspiring for me to see how Katrina makes a comeback like this. And I believe we will see some technical win again by Katrina because this is just an extra pawn on the queen side. Bishop c6 marked as a question mark there. Something is wrong in the Priyanka's position apart from down a pawn.
I think it's because maybe there's rook e2, giving up this pawn on b5, because at some point this doubling on the second rank is going to really hurt you. And bishop f1, trying to trade bishops, that probably was the way to try to make a draw. And she plays rook e2, and I was wrong, and Katerina makes my mistake.
Yeah, it's the commentator's curse, right, Robert? Right. So rook e2 is wrong. Although I would agree with you that that looks very natural, but apparently you shouldn't give up the b5 pawn because that is your winning pawn. Maybe just a simple rook b8 would seal the deal.
What is the sorry? What? How do you stop this? Like, I'm so confused how the eval bar was at equal for a moment there, or just slightly better for black. It's always looked to be nearly winning.
Yeah. I'm trying to find out too. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's a mystery for me. But okay, now it's looking very clear that the black is going to have another extra pawn. So two pawns up for Katrina would be enough to finish the game.
Two clear extra pawns, also nearly 2 minutes ahead on the clock, and we will get one more game in this time patrol. So for Katerina, who's found her internet connection, she's found her form. Uh-oh. Dropping f7. Oh, she didn't
Oh,
take it.
what is going on? What did they do? Oh, Priyanka
I
just removed something. I
Yeah, I
think.
think she has under 3 seconds remaining. She could have stolen this pawn. She would have made an immediate draw if she took that pawn.
Right. Yeah, there is no way to stop the perpetual. If you go king h6, it would have been a mate on h7. So you have to go to the back rank, and then there you go. All the checks coming up.
Maybe this isn't as easy as we initially thought to win the game, just because. Oh yeah, not for king g6, it feels much easier. But you have to somehow push your pawns. But as soon as you push the pawns, your king is vulnerable to some checks. So good defense from Priyanka thus far.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought there would be more opportunity before when the king was cut on the h file, but okay, I didn't see any how to follow up. Okay, so Priyanka resigned because one pair of rooks just going to be traded off, and it's easier for Katrina to continue.
And now we have an exchange French. So Priyanka's French, it put fear in Katerina's heart. And so she's like, let's go for the exchange. I'm not going to be checkmated. I'm not going to get under attack here. Let's just play that technical style. So Irene, she didn't listen to you. She's playing, not listening to the commentary, but she kind of is heeding your advice. She is playing a more technical match now.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you have to always play your best forte. And yeah, I think it is a good choice to switch it to exchange French like this because, again, maybe it was not a good choice before because she was down in the match, but now she's leading the match. So any draw result is always good when you're leading the match. It's not about that round itself, but it's about the overall result. So yeah, but we see even in the exchange French like this, we see the opposite castles, so it promises us some explosive game.
Yeah, whose king is going to be weaker? F6 played to encourage G5 and H5 and H4 and A5. Both players are making very natural ideas, but apparently they're not the most accurate choices. So this knight moves back to D8. I tend to like black's position because I feel like white's attack, I don't see how it leads to checkmate. And then I see on the other side that black can just gather her forces. Maybe knight g6 to f4 at some moment. Of course, h5, h4, maybe a g5 thrown in. I feel like black's attack is a little bit more natural. White's is more artificial.
Well, I play this position as white myself, and I always like it if I could reach this type of position. Although I agree with you that it's a bit harder for white to start the attack. We already have the pawn on a5 and the pawn on b5, but we need a very precise follow-up. While black, the moves are just very natural. They just push the pawns g5, h5, and then all the way to h3 maybe, and the bishop on d6 is already hitting on h2. Yeah, I agree, it's easier to play with black, but with precise play, white will be standing better.
Watch out for bishop takes h2 check. That is now a threat because the knight on f3 is pinned and the c3 pawn is loose, so maybe a queen move for white. Queen up to b3 makes sense, but you're putting all of your pieces on the queen side for white, and black will counter on the king side. I think this is a very fun game. It's been a fun match. We started with an exchange French, and now it's wide open.
It's wide open. Yes, I'm expecting some explosive again on this one. And we see Queen B3 is on the board, and I think Kateryna will go all in to play on the queen side, because this is the side that you have to start your battle, while black will be focusing on the attack towards the king side. So, and also you shouldn't ignore the fact that the central file is also very important. So even though you are attacking on different side, you also have to keep an eye on the center.
She didn't keep an eye on her a6 pawn. I pointed that out before. That pawn on b7 is pinned. So what is she relying on here after bishop takes a6? The engine doesn't really hate. I give a question mark, but it's not like +3. It says only +1 and change. So maybe black has some kind of resource after bishop takes a6. Is it bishop takes knight in g4? Is that her plan?
I have no idea, but I think Priyanka just doesn't want to waste any time playing something like King A8. I think she just wants to attack, and yeah, and by doing so, she has to sacrifice this A6 pawn.
And now h2 can be captured, so that pawn is hanging with check. But there's also knight g6 type of ideas. White's king, there's a back rank checkmate against it, so I thought knight g6 first, and such a smart move by Kateryna. Bring your king towards the center. Her rook is defended. That's actually quite critical.
Yes, also using the fact that black doesn't have a light square bishop anymore, so the king on f1 is standing very safe.
And bishop b5, we saw Priyanka win with a move like this earlier. Now it's Kateryna's turn, and a6 is going to be available, going after the black king. I take everything I said back before. I like black's position. That's what I said. I'm kidding. White's attack was always superior.
Right, yeah, but there's still some homework to do, because now, yeah, black has to also keep an eye on the central file, right? Because the king on f1 might be a little bit weak if there is no more guard around it. I was thinking of queen e7, but I think white can just safely play bishop d2 and stops everything.
There's a simple developing move. That piece has not been touched yet. And I want to add that knight f5. Ooh, that's not f5. That is though. That's going to hurt at some point. Like you said, the light squares are under white's control. The king is safe. The f5 square is vulnerable. d5 is hanging. It does feel like now black is pretty lost. One tricky move you could play in bullet would be bishop b4 to go queen h2. That is how you win bullet games, is by sneaky little attacks like that.
Wow, you're very sneaky, Robert. Yeah, I like that idea. But unfortunately, Kateryna has almost like 3 minutes on the clock. She wouldn't fall into such a trick.
No, because after bishop b4, pawn takes queen h2. There's also queen g3 check, trading the queens off. So I'm getting tricky. Danya and you were commentating yesterday. I'm doing my best Danya impersonation by trying to come up with sneaky bullet tactics.
Right. Yes. Okay. So in this position after a6, there's no easy way to continue, to be honest, because white's attack is just very dangerous. And I think the next move, you can even play a7, you can take on b7, you can move the bishop on c1, you can move the knight to f5, you can pretty much do anything.
I'm just going to draw all the arrows that you're talking about. Every single idea is good for white. And for black, I know it sounds like I was joking, but maybe you have to do something ridiculous to give yourself a chance, a bishop a3 type of move. But bishop a3 doesn't work because of bishop takes c6, so I acknowledge that. There's no option here. Black is toast.
I think you can, even if you don't see this queen h2 idea, even after you give up a bishop like that, you can safely take it with the rook or with the queen. And after you play queen h2, there's always bishop e3, and there shouldn't be any mate whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make this bullet sensation happen. It's not going to work. So that's how bad Black's position is. That even this crazy sacrifice doesn't actually work in any variation. I'm playing hope chess, but there is no hope. So Priyanka down to a minute. The good news is it's the final game of the 5+1.
Wow, yes. And yes, Priyanka is down under a minute right now. She's not looking happy over her position for a good reason, for sure. And yeah, Kateryna, if she wins this one, it is going to be her third win in a row, and her fourth win in total.
Yeah, she started down 2 points, and it would extend her lead to two of her own. And Queen B6 played by Priyanka. I think that makes perfect sense. Pinning the bishop, freeing up a square for your king. That may seem strange, but sometimes your king has to scurry away, run towards the center to survive against the checkmating attack.
Yes, exactly. And queen d5 is already on the board. Yeah, just simply taking this pawn away, and bishop c7. Ooh, the black's position looks very cramped. The king is surrounded by white's pieces. Takes on b7. You
You
cannot
can't
take it,
even.
can you?
No, king takes, maybe rook a6. That queen looks trapped over there. Knight
Right.
takes, hangs a piece right away. This is just crushing.
Yeah, this is totally crushing. And rook a8 might come into the radar very soon. Or anything, pretty much anything you can play. Yeah, you don't need to touch the knight on h4 at all. Okay, queen takes. This might be a better option for black, but what's next?
Rook b1 seems very tempting to me. She plays bishop a6, just hitting the queen away. Queen b6, I guess, and then bishop d3 even with rook b1. This just, I don't see how you get out of this.
Right, yes. Yeah, that light square bishop proven to be a very good bishop until this part of the game. And Kateryna just kept marching on. Queen c8 is going to be on the board soon. It was such a good fork to c8 and the rook on e8.
And queen a5 only moved to avoid checkmate in one, but you can just take this queen and you're up way too much material. The question marks don't matter at this stage, but it does feel like there's a forced checkmate. Queen a6 next. Kateryna Lagno wins.
Wow. Third win by Kateryna Lagno, and leading by 4.5, 2.5.
She has now found her form. She's roaring back, and there's Priyanka Nutaki. Turns her camera off because it's going to take a break. Both players deserve it. But for Priyanka, it looked like it was going to be the upset of a lifetime. She started with 2 straight wins, but since then, it's been all Lagno. 4.5, 2.5 is your score, Irene. I mean, Kateryna, she's back.
She's back. She's totally back. And I'm happy to see such a battle tonight, Robert. And I think we will be back after some break, and we'll continue with the 3-minute portion.
We certainly will. The players, they get their rest. We'll do the same. Up next, the Julius Baer Women's Speeches Championship is the 3-minute plus 1 second increment. This is the match between Kateryna Lagno and Priyanka Nutaki. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What's up, world? It's time to make another move. If you haven't joined the Vote Chess game yet, you still can. It's Danny versus World. And this is the current position that we have in our game. Y'all have just played Bishop G7. I just used y'all appropriately, which is something we should note. Obviously, I should consider Bishop takes F6 and hope you guys are just going to pre-move castles, right? Unfortunately, with Vote Chess, it doesn't work that way, though. So, because this isn't Blitz or Bullet, the other options that come to mind in this sort of unique Sicilian, which, as I said in the video I did at TwitchCon with the live giant pieces, jokes aside, I chose that on purpose because as the one person playing the world, knowing the resources you guys have, the legal resources you have available with opening books and then your discussion together, it feels like a good strategy often on this side of that type of battle to get a position that's out of book, out of theory, something that's flexible, is going to take some positional understanding, hopefully, to navigate. And so that's kind of what I've done here, right? No exchanges. It makes me think about moves like h3, a move that guards the g4 square, preventing knight g4 and bishop g4, right? Makes me think of retreating the bishop back to f1, which is also a flexible idea I'll keep in mind, because at some point, I might not be interested in taking here anymore. So keeping the bishop pair and then allowing me to sort of slow jam my perspective in the center. Am I playing for c3 and d4? Am I playing just d3? I could even get the bishop back and play c4, right? Like a Maroczy bind style structure. All of those moves are more attractive to me than playing a more forcing line like d4. So perhaps I'm giving you guys a little bit too much insight into my thought process. The competitive advantage that maybe I had is quickly disappearing, although did I even have an advantage from the start? Let's be honest, right? So now I've explained to you sort of how I'm looking at the position, the flexible options I want to maintain. You understand the positional nature of how I'm going to try to approach the middle game. And on that note, I'm going to commit, drum roll, I think I'm just going to play h3. I'm going to play h3 for the reasons I said. I'm going to hit that vote. I voted. You guys can see it. Make your move. Again, if you haven't joined yet, then you're missing chances to win all kinds of cool chess.com swag. This is Mittens. And I'm the only one who has Mittens yet. But more people are going to have options to get Mittens soon. We also have hats and swag and stuff we're doing. So tell your friends to join. Get involved. Have fun. I'm going to put Mittens right back here where it belongs. He, she, like Mittens is just Mittens. Mittens is. So there you go. Thank you for playing, and I'll see you around on chess.com.
We return to the matchup of Kateryna Lagno versus Priyanka Nutaki, and these two players have had very different paths to the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship. A year ago, Kateryna Lagno won first place and earned her spot as a return guest of the WSCC, and Irene, it was a very impressive slate of opposition, and she took them all down.
Right. Yes, it's a very impressive lineup that Priyanka has beaten in the qualifier of the WSCC, exactly the opposite path of qualifying into the Women's Speed Chess Championship. And we are seeing their match today, and it's been very explosive. We had 7 games in the 5-minute portion, and the 3+1 portion will come up soon.
Yeah, the level of play certainly increased from Kateryna Lagno. At first, she trailed by 2 points against our qualifier, Priyanka Nutaki, who couldn't even have expected to be here. But now that she is here, she's made her presence felt. And though she trails by 2 points, Irene, going into the quicker time drills, do you think that gives her a better chance, or is that actually going to favor Kateryna?
I think I will have to see the first game first to see how they perform on the first game because it's a bit too early to say. A 2 minute change on the clock, it's going to be quite a difference to the player. So, but I think as a weaker player or the lower seed player here, it is definitely a good chance for Priyanka to make a comeback and try to even the score first before leading it again.
There's something funny when the players who play a little bit more slowly suddenly speed up when it goes to the quicker time control. So Priyanka was always down on time. In games that Kateryna had good internet connection, it seemed like she was up 1, 2 minutes on the clock. But somehow in 3 minute, those slower players in 5+1, they get lightning fast.
Yeah, yeah. I think for the first game it will be quite a shock for them to adapt with the new time control. And yeah, they will have to play quicker and they will have to be even more practical. I think the lesson here, Lagno is a very experienced player and she understands that the strength of her opponent is on the open position, on the complex position. And we see in the last 3 games where Lagno Katrina won the games, it's always all technical games.
Yeah, technical expertise is through the roof when you talk about Kateryna Lagno. She's a 3-time Women's World Blitz champion, so many successes to her name, and she knows how to get it done even in the waning seconds in a very chaotic game. So we are going to see liftoff in the 3 minute plus 1 second increment shortly. And I like what you just said, that we need to take a step back and we need to look at the first game here in 3 minute plus 1 second increment, because that could tell us who is going to be the favorite in the shorter time controls.
Yeah, totally. And I just can't wait to see what Priyanka will offer on the table because she's been playing pretty much the same opening. There's a slight twist in her French variation, but again, Katrina also comes up with something fresh, something new, and maybe they will also change their repertoire in the 3 minute portion. And we already see now the new opening in their match. It is the Queen's Gambit Decline.
No more King's Indian defense, at least for now, from Kateryna Lagno. She's shelved that for the moment, and we see a calmer approach, but it turns into a Queen's Gambit accepted type of position. But this Vienna variation, oh, this is sharp stuff.
It is very sharp. Yeah, taking this gambit on e4, white will have all the activities, but black will try to defend and prove that the extra pawn is an extra pawn.
That e4 pawn is gone, but when you lose pawns, you open files. A rook e1 will see further into black's camp. And you see that Kateryna, she pauses and plays knight c6. She's not castling just yet. And, well, the question is, how do you prove your compensation? Irene, often is a vague term. Oh, you have compensation for a pawn. What is that like in this position?
Well, I think it is about to suppress the bishop on c8. As long as this bishop on c8 doesn't really have good activity on the board, and also trying to avoid as many exchanges as possible on the board, because you need all these pieces to create some attack to the king side. So maybe the knight on c3, I think you can give this up for the trade. It's fine, but the rest of the minor pieces, you have to keep them on the board.
Very instructive there. All of you who are watching, take note of what Irene just said. You're restricting the bishop on c8. That's one of the ideas. You also do not want trades. Black is up a pawn. Typically, we like to liquidate, simplify when we're up material. So I'm with you 100%. White needs to continue the attack. She plays queen d3. To me, that hints not just at rook to d1, connecting the rooks, but bishop b3, bishop c2. Yep. Wrap that bishop around and go for a checkmate.
Yes, now it is a question whether Katrina will keep the bishop on b4 on the board or not, because at some variation you might actually put it on d6, and I think I like this idea of h6. You are not in any hurry to do some short castle, because just like what you mentioned, Robert, this idea with bishop b3, bishop c2 is going to be a very dangerous idea to the black's position. So h6 first, try to see what Priyanka has in store, and then now try to take some action, maybe bishop e7 or bishop d6, but also maybe castle bishop e7. I think it's way safer now to play bishop e7.
Great call by you. The one thing I really don't like about this game thus far is how slow Priyanka has played. She went bishop h4 after a very long thing, 20 seconds. That's a move that she could have played in bullet in half a second. So I feel like she's playing a little bit too gingerly right now. And at the moment, Kateryna's done a very good job bringing her bishop back. Of course, rook d1's a natural move. And finally, we see the king castle. So, Irene, you can be a very aggressive player. I know that. How do we attack that black king?
Well, I think you are judging from our last encounter in St. Louis tournament, Robert. I was up for like plus 55, but I managed to lose that game against you. Yes. So, yeah, that was such a crazy game. But yeah, in this position, I don't know how to muddle the water because it looks like White has to do something to complicate the position, but all Priyanka did is just all the solid looking move, which is not bad, but this is not to my expectation.
And G6 earned a question mark. That was anticipating this bishop rerouting as we keep talking about. But I do like what Priyanka has done. Number one thing, she avoided trades. Number two thing, the bishop on C8 still can't get out. She is not taking on D5 anytime soon. That will free this bishop up. So black is doing natural moves, rerouting, and white much of the same.
But in this position, can I just simply play knight to b5 with the idea of taking on d5 and then take on c7? Because if you take it now immediately, there might be some intermezzo with bishop f5. So I think knight b5 right away without taking on d5 first, it could be an idea. It's a bit concrete. It's not a principled move in this position, but yeah, it's just a concrete calculation.
I like knight to b5. That's a really cool idea. I wasn't looking in that direction. You said knight. I was going to draw knight e4, heading towards the center, and maybe up to c5 at some point. But Priyanka, she needs to make a move. I don't know if she's going to pick b5 or e4, move something else altogether. She plays h3, but you can't play these positions with 13 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, I think she's just trying to figure out what to do here, and she is going to a completely different direction. I still don't understand about queen d2, rook c1, rearranging the already good, very well placed pieces. Yeah, she has to come up with something concrete.
But she plays rook c1, so she's passing the baton right back to Kateryna. If you play c6, oh, she plays it. That bishop is terrible. But maybe she'll play b6 and finally get the bishop out. But I like the dark square control by White's pieces here.
Yeah, even though if the eval bar likes black at the moment, but I think White has a full compensation to the pawn.
Ooh, a b4, that's a little bit too loose. And bishop h6. You know what? In short
Wow.
time controls, that's an exchange you might want to lose because then the black king will be less safe. Oh, that's not good.
And Robert, Priyanka only has 4 seconds on the clock. How did we miss this? How did we miss the fact that she's actually in time trouble?
She just spends too much time. That's been her kryptonite in this match. She's played some great games, some great decisions, and now finally the light square bishop is out. Black is up an entire piece. This game should be in Kateryna's favor.
Exactly. Yeah, Katrina has all the advantage on the time and also on the board. And yeah, extra piece is huge advantage. And now there's no compensation for Priyanka whatsoever.
And I agree with this featured chat message that Priyanka does need to improve her time management. This is not going her way because she's leaving herself with 3 seconds in critical positions. And she blundered in exchange, but she made it worse by blundering a piece instead and just sacrificing it maybe. But now she's 3 seconds, she's down a piece. And for Kateryna, it's mop-up duty.
Exactly. Yes. Simplification here and there, exchanges, all the tradings, but still need to be a bit careful. Okay, knight c6, giving up the pawn, but it will allow another exchange like this, simplifying the position. Yeah, so far it's looking good for Kateryna.
If she takes the central pawn on d4, there's going to be a problem with this queen on d2 in the near future. And Kateryna's done everything right. And queen takes g5. Just take everything that you want.
Exactly, and there is no risk to the black king, and I mean only with the white king is currently under attack. Knight f4, threatening a mate on g2, bishop b7, holding on g2.
Okay, the one thing
Wow.
that's going decently for Priyanka at this stage is the clock is getting closer, but she's also getting closer to losing on the board because it's a full extra piece and an extra pawn for black.
Exactly. Well, now Katrina has 20 seconds left on the clock. Okay, just pray that her internet connection will be stabilized, and she won by resignation.
Kateryna played a very nice game there. She was able to steal the pawn in the opening, and then she forced her opponent to prove the compensation it wasn't meant to be. We're back to the French, and will we see an early take on d4 like we saw in the previous game, or will we go back to those early knight f5 lines? She made her answer clear.
Yep. Yep. And now Kateryna played a4 instead of knight a3 to b5. So this might be another approach because you can also go to d2 and b3 later on. This will give more flexibility to Kateryna's options.
And we see the first think of the game from Priyanka, not expecting this a4, bishop d3 move order. Bishop takes f5. Is that a threat? It's a big question. E takes f5. The d5 pawn is loose, but sometimes black sacrifices that pawn to get the bishop pair in a lead in development. So this is a critical moment for Priyanka. She's spending her time, but I have to say, I think she needs to play more quickly. Knight h4, finally chosen, but she's down 30 seconds.
Okay, and there you go, knight bd2. Exactly that. Now Kateryna decides to play along the center with the knight compared to what she has done in the previous games. The knight went to a3 to b5, and I think I like this option better. I like playing in the center, and this just has proven that the knight on f3, I think it's standing better than it was on b5.
That knight on b5, it wasn't aiming anywhere useful. So the knight on f3 at least covers key squares, closes the f-file. But f6, Priyanka is not afraid to get her hands dirty, to play and challenge the center and open up the f-file. I have to say that these Frenches have been quite fun to commentate because they get very active and tactical in short order.
Yeah, exactly. And bishop g5 already happened. Queen f7, back bishop e3, a very thematic idea by Kateryna, which she already did in the previous game. And now it is a question for Priyanka. Bishop d6, a question mark. Why is it so bad? Maybe because there's c4.
Ooh, c4 is an option. Knight g5 tempts me because where's that queen going? She plays knight g5.
Exactly.
h7 is loose as well.
Wow, yeah. So I think after knight g5, you can take on h7 right away with the bishop or with the knight.
Can I play queen h5 check g6 knight takes h7, or is that too much?
Wow, that's looking so fancy, Robert. It might work actually. Actually, that's I think that was a good move because now after knight takes h7, the queen can just move to e5 maybe, hitting on h2. F4 was not an option because bishop e3 is hanging, and the knight cannot move because h2 will always be hanging. So yeah, queen e5 is a good move. You just have to lose the right of castling because after queen e5, bishop g6, but you can just go to d8, I guess.
Yeah, the king runs to the queen side. It's important to note that queen h4 looks winning for black, but bishop g6 check will force the king onto a dark square, and bishop g5 check will be the follow-up. And unfortunately, that's going to win the game for white, winning the queen. So to be really careful in a position like this, if you're Priyanka and she's once again spending time, I have to say I'm nervous for her chances.
Robert, I have a cool idea. What if we just castle alongside? If you take on f6, there is bishop f2, bishop h2. Is it too much? It's
yeah, because
there's knight h5. Yeah.
Yeah, or back to h7. But that's such a good idea, and that's what she's aiming for. Is that at some moment this is going to hurt? And okay, rook takes h7, bishop takes h7, g6. You get two pieces for a rook and two pawns, but you have the attack. She has to find rook takes h7 here.
Ooh. And now the knight escapes and stabilize with h4 maybe. I think h4 is a very good looking move. But of course, Kateryna has other options too. Maybe queen f3 even. This is time to exchange something.
She plays f4, showing no fear. Is Kateryna Lagno. That's a move that exposes your king, but she's claiming her bishop on e3, and then the opening of the second rank is actually helpful for white.
Yeah, I think I like this option better with f4 instead of h4. It is a multi-purpose move, and e5 is now on the board. I think you can just swap the pawns and play bishop f4 next, because after fe, you have to take it with the queen.
Oof, and bishop f4. Black doesn't lose a piece because of bishop c5 check, but the king is actually in huge danger over here. If you get one single check, that will be checkmate. So the king should just move out the way. Maybe not to g2, because at some point bishop h. Oh, she goes to g2. Wow.
Okay, knight g5. Thank God there's knight g5. Bishop h3 is not a possibility. Yeah, but I agree. It looks very dangerous now having the king on g2 because there might be some additional check. But so far, the position is quite safe for Kateryna, and she goes for another trade over queen e1. I think she's just going to play some technical chess again. She's already up a pawn with a better position as well. If the queens are off the board, it is almost no chance for Priyanka to come back on this game.
Did you say safe? Because it seems like that's exactly what Katerina is going for. You're calling it correctly. It's Katerina's style, and she's playing it well. But Queen of Six is a great choice by Priyanka. She needs to go for some kind of attack. It may not be objectively strong, but look at the clock. Once Katerina dips under a minute, that's when you make mistakes, and the king on g2 is wide open. Whoa.
Yeah, B4, a little bit too ambitious move, but I think Catcher is just using the fact that Priyanka is only down to like now 5 seconds and try to make the position even more complex. Rook E8, Queen D2. I don't know what's going on. Can you take on B4? Yes, he
You
did.
have to. Yeah, and now the queen goes to f2. Watch out for queen b6. But h2 was hanging, but the queen wants to come up to b6 and deliver checkmate.
Yes, and I think Catherine will just play it. Yeah, I don't see anything else. Queen seven will be coming on the board soon. If you play knight e5, there might be a check along the c5. But okay, bishop a5. What a good defense by Priyanka.
Very good move by her. And queen goes to c5. Queen into g4. Watch out for rook takes h4. Suddenly black has some counter chances.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is not as easy as I thought before because black always come up with some resources and it's not ending there. Queen rook h4, just like you mentioned. Wow.
And watch out for rook e2 check, but she takes a bishop. The rook pins the knight. Great tactical vision from Kateryna Lagno. Rook f2, there's rook h2 check. Oh, but there's no more checks. It looks like it should be a draw, but king h1, the knight on g5 is a hero.
Wow, that knight was from B1. It's the heroic knight, turns out, until the end of the game.
What a sequence down the stretch. Kateryna Lagno stretches her lead to 4 points. So, Irene, we're looking at Priyanka Nutaki doing her best, but what does she need to change? I think the obvious answer is moving more quickly, but is there anything in the chess that you see that she also needs to change?
Yeah, I think moving quicker is one of the main things because when she falls down under a minute, she keeps making so many mistakes, and it's not only come in a pair, Robert. It comes more than a pair. So yeah, once she settles with her time management, I think she will play better. Because if you remember the first two games, I know Lahno was making mistakes as well, but the time management by Priyanka in the first two games were just amazing, and that's why she won the game. But now, yeah, she has to move quicker. She has to play the opening that she knows best, not to be experimental with other variations that she's not familiar with. And we can see it from there.
Well, it's a good start to this game then. She's up 30 seconds on the clock. Every single move has had a purpose, very natural opening development. And we see bishop f5 from Katerina defending this knight on e4. So for Priyanka, there's always a temptation to play queen c2 and castle kingside. These moves are natural. She needs to keep up the pace.
Exactly, yes. And now, since Priyanka is delaying the castle, there might be some other ideas as well by playing the long castle and try to attack on the king side. But I agree, the short castle is way more natural. I think it is also played more often by players. But yeah, Priyanka is quite spoiled with options here. The castles are good. Knight e5, what she just did is also very natural. So yeah, it's looking normal and looking very solid for Priyanka.
She should take this bishop on g6, secure a pair of bishops on an open board. I like this for white, but she's thinking right now. So is she thinking to take on g6 with the bishop? Because I wouldn't take on c3 and allow the bishop exchange.
Right. Yeah, this is a tough call to make because I play this as black, I don't know, a million times, and it's always hard to think which piece that I have to trade, which piece shouldn't be traded. And Bianca chose to take on g6, hg, and now I think she's only limited to do short castle and play e4 at some point.
It looks like a good idea. Rook b1 at any moment, e4 or c4. This bishop on f4 is so fantastic. It stops a black rook from going to b8. And b5, this knight is about to entrench itself on c4.
Yes, what normally happens in this type of variation is usually white has a minority attack with a4 b4, but now since the pawn captured the piece on c3 by b takes c3, there is no more idea for white in this situation. So the only thing that I can think of is to play in the center towards the king side, and Priyanka just did it.
Great understanding by her and a great explanation by you. Pawn takes, bishop takes, that c6 pawn is loose. And wow, a6 played. It feels like Kateryna's playing with fire. e5 is so tempting me because I'm going to move my bishop, play f4, f5, and go for checkmate.
Yes, I think the drawback with e5 is you are keeping an e6 square for the knight ladder. It would be a very good blockade with the knight. And also, the nature of the knight, it's very good in the close position. So that is why I think I can understand Priyanka's decision by taking on d5, trying to make the full use of the pair of bishops because bishops likes open positions.
They need open diagonals. That is very true. And well, if this pawn goes to a5, that bishop on b4 will be a very happy piece. Now, this knight needs to find its way, but first things first, the bishop and the pawn are hanging. So queen f5 defends both. That's an awkward square for the queen.
It is very awkward. I agree. That square belongs to the pawn, but if the pawn moves there, d5 will hang. So queen a5 is forced. But now it is time for Priyanka to make use of the rooks because they are currently not doing anything at the moment.
And black is just a few moves away from coordinating her pieces and making sure that she's okay here. So maybe rook to b1, as we talked about before. There is no rook to b8 for black, thanks to this bishop on f4. So white controls many of the key diagonals and key files with the rook coming to b1 and maybe a rook to c1 next.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to note that Priyanka is under a minute now. And usually, when these players are under a minute, they will start making significant mistakes. I'm worried it might happen anytime soon. Rook c3 is the threat, but now rook b1 is hitting on b4. So Katrina has to do something about her bishop.
That might still be available, though. Rook c3 played. Great
Oh,
call. Yeah, because if you took on b4, the d3 bishop was loose, and that would have been a good endgame for black to be able to hold. So queen d1 played. I love this move. You have a bishop pair. h4, h5 is not out of the question. I think that white has better coordination for the time being.
yeah, totally. Yes. And I liked also this idea of yours that just marching with the pawns, but white has to also make sure that she doesn't hang anything. Is the idea bishop a6 work in this position? It's just a direct attack to me.
Ooh, takes, rook takes b4. She plays queen e2, so she's eyeing that pawn. I like that move, queen e2. It makes it challenging for black to respond, but I think you're right that a6 pawn is very loose.
Yes. And now, okay, now do you take on a6 or you can just simply play something else? Or you can take on a6 now. Yep. And now it's time to attack for white because everything is already clear. Ooh, rook c2, a mistake.
Rook takes
Just
b4.
simple tactic. Rook takes
Will,
b4.
Priyanka needs to find this to get back in the match. It's queen d1, which
Oh,
makes
queen
sense,
d1.
but rook takes b4 had to be found.
Right, right.
How does black... Wow, bishop c3, because bishop d3, there's rook a2 to save the day. Okay.
Yes, wow, there.
I feel like... Oh, no. Oh, no. She hung a piece. Priyanka hung a piece.
Oh, that's bad news.
Just now the game is over, and unfortunately for Priyanka, her time never helps her, and Kateryna wins another game.
Wow, that is Katerina's third win in the 3+1 portion, and it's wow, she's leading by 5 points now.
She is. So right now, it's all Kateryna. She takes that drink of water or whatever it is in her cup. She has a big lead, and for Priyanka, she needs to get on back to her winning ways. She's struggling with her time management. When she's in time trouble, it's not going her way. So she's back to the French defense. Irene, any general advice? Like, how does somebody improve time management? I think it's hard for people who are trying to get better at it to know what to do.
Well, it is always it is an evergreen question, Robert, because if I could fix my time management, I would have been better at online chess for sure. But unfortunately, I don't have an easy answer for you. I think it just comes by experience. You just have to play more, and by doing so, you'll gain your understanding better on how you manage your time situation.
Yeah, no, it's
So
one of those things. I wish I had the answer to it as well. Nobody, even the best bullet players, they're like, yeah, just play faster. I'm like, how do I do that? I don't know how, Hikaru does it or Danya does it, but we have a repeat of a variation here. We have that French, where the knight, instead of going out to b5, it went to d2 and swapped on f3. So we've seen this position before, and Priyanka, once again, is spending time. She's down 20 seconds on the clock.
right, yeah, wow, this is. I think Kateryna is just killing it. Kateryna, once she's when she got her connection back and she got into her fighting spirit again, I think now she's just showing how good she is at speed chess. Yeah, well, she was a champion last year for a reason.
She was indeed, and she's playing a great match today. And after Queen H5, so the move order has changed. Look at this. The Queen, instead of attacking for checkmate, goes after the B7 pawn. The B6 square is vulnerable. I love the way that Kateryna has changed her openings and found a way through against Priyanka's French.
Right. Yes. I mean, Katrina has a lot up in her sleeve about so many repertoires, about so many variations. In French, she can just go left and right and try everything that she knows. And I don't think this is actually her main repertoire, but she just plays it for the sake of speed chess.
Well, if it's not her main repertoire, I'm scared of what she knows super well because this decision, Queen A3, so Queen B3 to attack a pawn, Queen A3, everybody at home, you can't castle through check. I'll try. Nope, can't do it because the Queen covers the F8 square, and that Queen may sink its teeth into the D6 square. It looks very unpleasant for Black.
Right, yes. Wow, this looks very solid. And again, we see this thematic idea with Bishop E3 that Katerina always employed in many of her French games. So this looking quite solid for her. I like her position. And this is also a new idea. I've never seen her playing this Queen B3, Queen A3 before in other games. So I think Priyanka is a little bit confused now.
She went Queen H6 trying to go after the E3 pawn, but I don't know what happens if White plays a simple Rook to E1. Katerina does it. E4 can be played. You just blast open the center while Black's king is still there. It looks really nice for Lagno.
I think Priyanka is still not learning her lesson. How many games she lost by having the king in the center, Robert, in this match? It was at least one, I mean, more than one games, maybe more than two even. So now, okay, offering to trade the queen. Of course, Katrina is in a attacking mode, so she doesn't want to trade the queen when she's attacking.
And she stopped the Black king from castling by having a rook on the open file. You can't castle through check. I keep trying. It won't let me. Knight G4. This is a pony going nowhere. I mean, Queen H4. This is hope chess. You're not going to land a checkmate. So I feel like Katerina, E4, that speaks to me, and she plays it.
Wow, E4 is just so natural and it is just asking to be played. I like that move a lot. It's so principled and it is very attacking right now. Yeah, Katrina is posing a very hard situation on Priyanka's position right now.
I feel for her because when Kateryna Lagno is in form, there's very little that most people can do. Same what happened yesterday with Ho Yifan. She trailed by 2 points. Suddenly she became the Ho Yifan that has been the number one rated female player in the world for so many years. And then she dominated. And this is what Kateryna is doing. She fixed her openings, she fixed her internet, and she's just cruising right now.
Yeah, these players, they are very dangerous once she gained their understanding over their opponent's playing style and playing strength. They just could easily adapt to it and then they're going to go after their weaknesses. So it is not only about what's happening on the board, but experience really talk a lot in this match because Katrina really fixed everything that she needs to fix off.
And she's about to fix her knight and bring it to e6. She does just that. Oh my goodness. You can't castle through check. You thought you could, but no, you can't. This Black king is stuck in the center. The e5 pawn is dropping. Oh no, the king is wide open. d6 at some point. That might hurt.
Yeah, that looks like a very good move. Knight is untouchable on e6 because you always have bishop c4, but Kateryna chose to take on e5, which is also pretty good. You just take another extra pawn, and rook g5 hitting on g7. How to solve this one?
There's no way to solve it. You have 2.2 seconds left if you're Priyanka. You're down 2 pawns. Your king is on f7. It looks completely hopeless. And for Priyanka, she might be getting into that territory where she needs to resign early. There's still the whole bullet portion. So, of course, she has chances to win a bunch of games in a row. But you need to conserve the match clock if you're her. And right now, she has no chances in knight takes g7. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, okay. Now this is just game over. Oh, and then take with the discovery check, yeah? And
That's why she
Kateryna won
resigned.
it again.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's one of those things. I can't look at this anymore. I know I made a move, but I have to resign next game. And Irene, Kateryna's unstoppable right now.
She's totally unstoppable. I'm just taking a note that this is her 7th win in a row, Robert, out of 8 victories that she already did. So it's amazing. Like, what a streak, right? 7 wins in a row.
That's right. It was 2.5, 1.5 at the first break, and that break couldn't have come at a better time for Kateryna. She's won 7 straight games. She goes back to her King's Indian, but what is this? Knight c6, knight back to b8. How do we instruct our viewers who may just be starting chess or trying to learn some concepts? They move this knight up and then back. That seems wrong.
Yeah. Wow. This is at least another variation. Okay, Kateryna finally didn't play knight c6 like what we mentioned before. It's a little bit inaccuracy, but okay, it was proven to be quite successful on some of her games. But she had another approach this time with a5 knight a6, which is more natural, which is more very principled in the King's Indian defense, and e5 is already on the board.
Yeah, the King's Indian is known as being a tactical, aggressive opening, but at its core, it's actually quite strategic because if you look at the pawns, they're not attacking one another, which means you're not opening up diagonals or files. All pieces remain on the board. It's closed, which allowed Kateryna to play her knight back and forth and only then play in the center. So e6 was captured, so it's a new approach from Priyanka. Arena, I mean, these types of games have been going Kateryna's way, but my take of this position is white is the side for choice.
Right. Well, white has quite a healthy center, that's for sure. But I think this is still up for everyone's game right now. E4 is going to be under attack. Well, this is still a game. This is still a game. Knight c5 will be coming. F3 will be played. Yeah. So it's just a game to see who is out of these two girls the one who's more tricky, because this is still an even position.
And bishop f3 was played. I guess Priyanka says, I don't want to touch my f-pawn. That's been backfiring for me. So she plays
Right.
bishop f3 and follows it up with a question mark move, knight d5. The e-file is open, but only one player is ready for that to happen. It's black.
Right. Wow. So this is, how do we say this again? It looks like, okay, this game is Indian. We have some sort of like Benoni structure as well. And this f5 is also another idea. If you're thinking about the Benoni and you always want to get rid of the bishop on e3, f5 is always a practical and good idea to do so. Yeah. How does Priyanka solve this problem?
I want to play knight e6 at some point, but you have too many pieces around there. But f5 is one of these I'm feeling it type of moves. Like I think Lagno feels very good about her play in the last bunch of games, so she's going for more, but it can backfire because you weaken so many squares. Look at the eval bar; it's going up in White's favor. A knight e6 is definitely something worth consideration.
Right, yeah, knight e6, just sacrificing this knight, but you have all the diagonals for your bishop. But instead of knight e6, Priyanka retreated it back to knight e2, which is a little bit inferior, and now it's giving Lagno some chances to give some counterattack.
And she was stopping f4, so we get why she played knight to e2. She wants to cover the square, and there Kateryna's knight goes into the center, clogging in the middle of the board, and we're going to see some trades. Who do they favor? Oh, knight g5. What a move.
Knight g5 hitting on f3, and the bishop cannot move at all. The only way to save it is by protecting it by playing queen d3, queen c3. But yeah, that bishop is expensive. You cannot afford losing it, I guess.
Yeah, we see the trade and the engine says black is doing well. I think you can bring your rook up to e4, slide your next rook over, and there's only one open file, and black's pieces are ready for it.
Right. Wow. Okay, so now it's time for Kateryna to double up the works on the E file. Yes, and she just did it. Rook e7, rook e8, and she will have more control on the game. And thanks to the pawn on f5 actually, because now she has some idea having an outpost on e4. Maybe not necessarily now, but it's surely limiting White's options.
And I'm looking at the clock. White down under 35 seconds, whereas Kateryna has a minute and 27. Every single game feels like it's going with this storyline. Kateryna is well ahead on time.
Right, yes. Okay, so it's going to be the same story, but Priyanka. Priyanka has to find her fighting spirit back, like what she did in the first two rounds when she just started off the match with a clean slate. This is, again, another thing that I really observe in other matches, that once you're losing, and especially when you're losing so many games in a row, it affected your way of thinking, it affected you psychologically, and it can really backfire to your performance.
Yeah, perhaps at some moment earlier in the match, Priyanka should have just tried to force a draw if she could have. But right now, there's a queen on b2. Her time is under 18 seconds. a2 is loose, but the black king on f7 does look wide open, and h5 at any moment can be dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay, but Katrina has still to be careful. But the queen on b2 looks like a very active queen. The knight on f4. Ooh, I like your idea with knight e6. Yeah, just sacrifice this pawn for all the attacks. Yeah, but in fact, oh, is this a mistake?
It
Takes
looks like
takes.
black. Oh, White is so passive here. So maybe you can hold this game, but it looks terrible for Priyanka, who's down to 4 seconds. She needs to go forward, but she keeps. I think she's too cautious right now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. She's a bit too cautious, and the rook on c2 maybe it's a little bit untouchable. It is very principled to have the rook on the second rank like this, and the knight on c1 doesn't do anything. It has to keep guarding one of the pawns. If it's a2, right now, maybe later when the a2 is pushed, the b3 will be hanging. So yeah, things are looking good for Katrina, but she has to find all the concrete winning line. And now h5 pawn will be fallen.
Yeah, you could take it even with the bishop. Knight g3 is went by rook to f3 check or rook e5. So it's getting chaotic because not much time for white, but it seems like Lagno is taking control.
I think knight g3 was a mistake because you have another option by playing knight d4, hitting the rook, and then knight e6, posing a threat to c7. But okay, it was a long time story ago. But now the knight is trapped on h1. And I think it's going to be another win. Yes, and Katrina won another game in this 3 minute and 1 second portion. Fifth win in this time control.
She is actually unstoppable right now. No matter what Priyanka does, it feels like she's under the duress of time trouble. She's getting pressed on the board. So Kateryna Lagno is just a different player than she was in the first 4 games of the match.
Yeah, this is more like her, to be honest. And you see, now it's another approach. We saw after queen b6, it was, what was it? She gave up the pawn, yeah, king h1. It was king h1, but now she finally found this knight a4. You mentioned it before in the previous game. This is a weird-looking knight on a4, but I think that's the call that she had to make anyway to save one of the pawns. And now it's a game.
Yeah, it's a very interesting position where black has a dark sword bishop, white's was captured, but double pawns aren't always bad. We're taught, oh, you want to keep a clean pawn structure, but double pawns open files. The open F file can be useful, and black says, I want to open it up myself.
Right. Yes. And now, ooh, this is a very typical structure, except that the pawn shouldn't be on e3. But now everything switched to the queen side. Before, I think Katrina has been playing on the king side in this type of structure because this is exactly the right call. But now, yeah, there's nothing to go for on the king side. Instead, you have to switch it to the queen side and then, yeah, play with all these attacks with the pawns.
I'm with you. All the focus on the queen side. A3, a little move, but it does support B4 pawn push. The rook on F1 can slide to C1 at any moment. So it does seem like the play should happen there. A rook coming to F8, what's that really going to do? That's what's played. But you're not barreling through the F file. Maybe black needs to play G5 at some moment. Get adventurous.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, you have to play something like that for sure. You cannot just keep playing some quiet moves because this is not the typical situation you are usually is having. Because Priyanka, again, she is in a must-win situation. She's already down so many games. She has to make at least one comeback first before she gain her confidence.
Yeah, and even if it's just a draw, that would help. But look at the clock. Priyanka now ahead by almost 30 seconds. So it's a different version of Priyanka Nutaki than we've been seeing in recent games. And she needs to keep pressing on the clock. Maybe bishop e8, reroute this bishop to a healthier diagonal. But I want to see her play faster because that's the only way she'll have a chance.
Right, yes, that bishop. Okay, and she did it. She did your plan, Robert. Yes, this is a very typical plan as well because the bishop on d7 is not doing anything. It's protecting e6, but e6 doesn't need more protection because there's already queen and the rook. And the bishop, yeah, can come up to g6, can come up to h5, and she chose the h5 square.
And queen c5. So your advice, once again, taken by Kateryna Lagno, let's get into a technical phase. Let's trade queens off the board. And if I'm Priyanka, she went queen b8 and she did it relatively quickly. That's the important thing. She needs to, at minimum, keep pace on the clock. But if I'm her, I want that 5-10 second lead because then you can try to induce some blunders from Lagno.
Exactly, yes. And she has to reduce her thinking time because usually when she is being faced with so many possibilities, she already knows what to do. She has to move the queen, but there are so many squares for the queen, and this is where she usually takes her time. But now I think she's learning her lesson, and then she just decided it quite fast.
And perfect is the enemy of the good. You don't want to make a perfect move if it takes you more than half your time remaining, for example. And there is an immediate checkmate being threatened. Bishop takes f3 and queen h2. So good moves quickly. That's the name of the game here for Priyanka Nutaki and rook h6. I think that was a very clever try.
This is a very good move, and I'm afraid that the only move here is h3, which allows queen g3. But I don't see any other defense because if you play g3 yourself here, I think you can just take on f3 and then take on g3 afterwards.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the queen's 95 plate. She doesn't want to touch her pawns over here, but you can probably steal this pawn in the center of the board.
Exactly, but I think you have to start taking on f1 first because you don't want to divert your queen from this diagonal to f8 square.
Good point. So rook takes f1. Maybe throw that in first. The rook has to take back in this direction. Then knight takes e5. We might see a bunch of trades. But yeah, white is hanging on by a thread here. The good news for Priyanka, she has enough time to calculate. That's what happens when you conserve your clock in the early stages.
Takes on e2. That's a very good move. And then now takes on e5. And you just enjoy this position. Okay, this might be the comeback that Priyanka is really needed at the moment.
And she needs to continue with the pace. Right here, she's up a pawn. It's not clear how to proceed. Maybe a rook f6 type of move. And the game will never be perfect. That was the best move, apparently. But you're not going to play perfect chess in time trouble. But you need to just play well enough to keep that pressure on Lagno.
Yes, moreover, we are entering the queen's endgame. Again, in the queen's endgame, the queen has so many squares to choose, and this might be a bit tricky. If you're not being practical, you get confused in choosing which square that you want to go.
And the queen goes up to b5. No confusion there. b7's under attack, queen e8, so queen e7 stops both of those. And we see Lagno is suddenly up 15 seconds. So for Priyanka, she needs to make some quick moves. I understand that she wants to convert this advantage up a pawn, but oftentimes it's just much more important to play quickly in a time scramble.
Exactly. And there is no risk to black's king at all. There is no checkmating idea. There's no checkmating net. So what she needs to do is just play and think later. Okay, queen c7, maybe with the idea of, oh, is there? No, there shouldn't be any perpetual here.
Should not king f7, but there is queen h8. That's why she went over to h6. And she shouldn't make a draw here. She is better, but she's probably looking at queen h8 or queen h4 instead played. But there are going to be attacks against the h7 pawn.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not very clear actually what to do here with black because the white's queen will always create some attacks, some threats along the back rank of the black's position.
And there's this pawn e3 can be captured, but you lose b7. And these kind of queen end games, they're about pawn quality, not quantity. So right now, it's an extra pawn for black, and she forced the draw by repetition. So a good save there from Lagno. But at least Priyanka got on the scoreboard.
Right. Yeah. At least now she gained half a point, and maybe this is a beginning to a full comeback on the next game.
But she's down by 7. So she needs to start scoring some victories, get into the bullet, and just go crazy. Just throw your pieces at Lucknow and bullet. The unfortunate news for her is Lucknow's proved herself to be very good at bullet in WSCC's past. So I'm, of course, acknowledging that the heavy favorite in this match from the start was Lucknow, but now especially 7-point lead.
Yeah, yeah, I could totally feel you. I think Lano is a terrifying player in the bullet, someone that you don't want to play against. But unfortunately for Priyanka, also this might be the last game in the 3 minute portion because unless they finish rather quickly and start the new one, but I don't think so. Judging from the pace of the games that we're currently observing, I think it will go over 6 minutes.
Yeah, these games have been taking a long time. And speaking of a long time, Queen C3 played after a 20-second think. I'm not sure I fully understand what that move is doing, but she needs to come up with an idea, which isn't easy when they're all 8 pawns are on the board.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Priyanka has to fix this too. Yeah, when she's given with so many possibilities, she just has to choose one because she keeps thinking too much and then she ended up being inferior in the time management. So, and this is I mean, there is no easy way on how to solve it. I think it's again taken by experience. Kateryna just knows better in those type of situations, and that's why we can see that so far Kateryna's time management has been very superb.
It has been. And E5, she strikes in the center. So it's the King's Indian style. And finally, we're breaking open that bishop on G7. It's not like white has to fear anything just yet, but the next move, F5, could be played and F4 to follow. You need to be really cautious here if you're Priyanka, and she's down a minute on the clock.
Yes, and Queen B3 is on the board, hitting on B7. B6 can be a good inclusion, but I think Katrina is looking a more active way to react on it. But no, she did B6, just trying to be steady. H3 is on the board.
And H3 was played in like 2 seconds. So that was a good decision by Priyanka. King H7 played rook E1. All these moves make perfect sense. You are ready to strike in the center. And speaking of striking, here comes F5. F4 not yet a threat because there is a queen in line with a rook, but watch out for that type of move.
Ooh, takes, and maybe Queen B5. Okay, depends on. Okay, if you take this way, there might be Queen B5.
Queen B5 and then maybe Knight C5, and this bishop is just out of play over here.
That's true. That's true. Yes, yes. Yeah, Katrina has been eyeing on that bishop the whole time. Yeah.
I once again don't like it for Priyanka. It's been really an unfortunate series of games for her. And yeah, I'm agreeing with the feature chat as well. She needs to win at least one game to feel more confident, to feel like she has chances, and just to get closer on the scoreboard.
Right. Oh yeah, but unfortunately now all Katrina's pieces are just getting into better squares. The knight on c5 and maybe now rook d8. Try to solve this one problem first with the prospect of knight d3. Oh, and she played it right away with knight d3 actually.
Knight d3
Oh,
hitting
there's
that
the
rook.
before. Knight before. Oh, okay, that's a fork then.
And queen b3 somehow is the wrong move. Like, what's wrong with that? You're going to lose material anyway, but somehow queen b3 was the incorrect square. Knight takes, pawn takes. The good news is the pawn on d5, you may get a knight into c6 or e6, and if the bishop takes it, then that king is vulnerable on h7. So this is not the worst exchange to lose.
Right, yes. Well, that's a good news for Priyanka. And that is why I guess Kateryna is currently thinking, because otherwise, if she didn't realize the resulting position, she would have taken on d5 immediately. And instead, she played rook f7.
And now a move like rook b5 might be an option here, just to save your rook and try to sacrifice it for the knight. It's played. It's a question mark, but you sometimes get lucky and you may make a mistake along the way, but you need to keep time on your clock because a perfect position won't be won if you don't have time to execute it.
Exactly, yes. And with 1 minute and 20 seconds on the clock, again, now Kateryna played rook d8. This is quite a technical move. You just want to double up your rooks on the d file, not to give any weakness in your position. Everything is protected. But now Kateryna has to solve this problem first. The knight moved to d3, a very good outpost for the knight.
This knight on d3 is the best piece on the board right now. The rook on b5 is awkward. Maybe rook d5 can be played, but c5 is not out of the question either because the b2 pawn will be targeted, though that does weaken b6. It's a committal choice.
Right, hang on. Isn't this losing the bishop right away? Takes on the rook, takes on the bishop, and play f4.
Oh, good find by you. I think that it's hard to play a move like bishop takes d4 because you're worried about your king safety, but you're 100% correct. And I'm looking at the clock, and knight c6 played a great find with 10 seconds remaining. Rook takes d5, pawn takes. That knight has finally found a happy place.
Yes, now at least the knight on c6 is compensating the knight on d3. Now Priyanka has to, wow, h4. So she realized that this bishop could be trapped at some point. Queen f7, a good find by Lagno, and h5, try to exploit the king. But unfortunately, the number of pieces are heavily reduced. There is no attack or anything for Kateryna, and Kateryna won on time.
Wow, and the position was good for Kateryna. She took one pawn, she was going to take a second, but for Priyanka, it just feels like it's been that kind of day. A great start, 2 wins in a row. You're starting to feel a little bit confident. You might have some chances, and since then, it's been all Kateryna.
Yes, we see another French defense here. I was hoping to see, usually, all these Indian youngsters, even the girls, one of their main or first openings are Sicilian Naidov. I know it's not like a beginner opening. Of course, it's one of the hardest and biggest openings, and this is actually what all these Indian youngsters are doing. I'm just a bit surprised with Priyanka's repertoire. I believe she's also a Sicilian player, but I don't know why she doesn't play it at this stage. She has been all French, but I'd love to see if there is any Sicilian happening on the board.
Maybe she'll pull that one out of the bag for the bullet, but her French, I feel like the opening hasn't been the problem for her. She's had many good positions. She's outplayed Kateryna sometimes, but there's just these critical mistakes and her time consumption. Those are the two things that have been plaguing her. But at the opening, I actually believe that she's done quite nicely with the black pieces.
Right. Yes, I think so too. Maybe opening is not her weakness, but I think it would be also better if she changes the opening and then start off with a clean slate, like a clean mind, because now Katrina is also gaining her understanding in this French defense by Priyanka, and maybe a new opening will also make some confusion to Katrina. You never know. But yeah, time management is a more deeper issue than the opening.
But I'm totally with you that being a moving target is probably a good thing for a lower rated player. But G4 played, knight takes, bishop to E3, bishop C5. Is there some kind of B4 craziness? It's too much for me to calculate, but there's clearly something happening there. I actually don't think that works for white. I think that won't work out because there's a knight. We would need let's bring up an analysis board. I know these moves are happening quickly, but I just want to backtrack there because that was a concrete forcing sequence, and the engine reacted. But knight takes d4, bishop e3, bishop c5, b4 is the point that I'm trying to distract one of your pieces from this knight. But after knight takes e2, bishop takes c5, knight takes on c3, and the white queen is also under attack. So if we pause, black is up a piece and a pawn. So that means that at best, white gets back that piece, black is up some material. So if she calculated all the way through, this was available to her.
Wow, wow, what a find. Yes, yes, that would have been quite interesting. But yeah, Priyanka doesn't want to take any risk and just drop the knight back to e7 and then just played it. I think she's just now trying to play some technical chess, not to lose anything yet. And again, she has the castle.
I don't know how it's going to happen. It would play knight g6, bishop e7, and castle so far away. And white is ready to play b3 because white wants this exchange on e3. Kateryna has shown that throughout the day. She likes her rook developed from where it sits on f1.
Right. Ooh, h5, a very bold move by Priyanka, trying to find a way to get after the white's king.
The problem, though, is that now knight g6 isn't going to be so appealing. I was not expecting a capture on h5, but perhaps Kateryna will follow up with knight f4 and king g2. And she says that my king is perfectly safe. You have no attackers.
Yeah, that is very possible as well. Yeah, although the king is looking quite open right now, but there are too many pieces around the king that can protect the king in that manner. And now b3 is on the board, and Kateryna is trying to provoke Priyanka to take on e3, which is a dream trade for Kateryna.
That rook on f1 is going to stare down towards f7. The knight will come to g5. I'm playing some kind of knight move. I don't know if it's a retreating move or an annoying knight a3. And she plays knight a3 to kick the rook out the way. That knight is going to sit there for maybe the rest of the game. It's stuck, but at least it has a kind of outpost.
Right. So rook c1, replied by b4. I don't really like this move, but I can understand why. The knight at least can go to b5 at some point. And now, yeah, now what is the idea?
Here
Knight
it comes.
g5.
There's going to be just some vicious attack against the black king. Bishop e7 is a move I would play and then pray afterwards. Like, please don't checkmate me. I'm going to try to survive it, but I think you have to develop at some point.
Yeah, you have to, definitely. But after bishop e7, you are right. After queen g4, it's still looking like white is in total control.
And the eval bar going all the way up in white's favor, over +3, despite the equal material. The black king does not have pieces defending it. Oh no. g7's hanging. Knight h5 is coming.
Yeah, this looks almost over. The queen on b6 is quite misplaced. This is not the way you want the queen to be. King f8, I think black is quite desperate at the moment. Wow, rook g1 hitting on g7. If you move that pawn, you can get in with queen f6, hitting every single thing. You can even sacrifice now if you want to, but queen f6 will, I think, seal the deal.
It's completely over, and just take on g6 with whichever piece except for your queen. Take with the bishop, the knight, or the rook. It doesn't matter. You're going to win the game.
Right.
And checkmate in 1 is threatened. Bishop e8. That's probably the only option.
Yeah, knight h5 now. Yeah, bishop h6. So many things. Yeah, now you can just simply take on g6 and...
Rook g8.
Okay, now eyeing on f1. Oh, rook g8. What a mate. But this will do. Nice. Nice game by Kateryna Lagno. Okay, we hope that Priyanka could make a comeback on the bullet section because she is really, really in a must-win situation. She got only half a point in the 3+1 portion and no win at all. So yeah, hopefully she can find her calmness and her spirit back towards the next stage.
Well, the good thing for Priyanka Nutaki is that it looks hopeless. So 12-3 is the score. Just throw all your pieces. That's what you have to do in the bullet. But we have to give a shout out to Kateryna. She was unbelievably strong in the 3+1, 7.5 to half. Irene, that is just absurd.
That is really absurd, but that is Kateryna Lagno. She was former women's world champion for a reason, both in the standard and the blitz chess. So, well, yeah, we have to give it up to her.
She seems unstoppable, and maybe she's going to make her way through to another finals in the Women's Speed Chess Championship. And we have another finals coming your way next month. I hope you're all excited because the Champions Chess Tour finals have finally arrived. Throughout the year, hundreds of the world's elite have been competing in a $2 million 6-event circuit, fighting for just 8 coveted seats, the live finals in Toronto, Canada. And now, our 8 finalists, including Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Fabiano Caruana, and more, aim their sights higher to the 2023 Champions Chess Tour title, the crown, and $500,000 prize fund. Join us for the 2023 Champions Chess Tour finals beginning December 9th. To learn more, use the command CCT in chat. With that, we're going to head to a break, but when we return, it's the bullet portion of Kateryna Lagno versus Priyanka Mutaki in the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship.
Anyone who has played even a small amount of chess, especially online, is familiar with the concept of an opening trap. We've all fallen for one at some point or another. In many cases, a failed opening trap will leave you with a terrible position, but not always. We've compiled 10 opening traps that are not only guaranteed to work, but if your opponent doesn't fall for them exactly, you'll still have a decent position. Number 2, Legal's Mate. This opening trap, if your opponent cooperates, can lead to one of the most beautiful and famous checkmates in chess. Named after Sire de Legal, it dates back all the way to the 18th century. It occurs in an Italian game, and in this position we play knight c3. Black might play bishop g4, pinning the knight to white's queen, and we can play h3, forcing black to make a decision about the light-squared bishop. If they retreat with bishop h5, this allows the brilliant knight takes e5, where a free queen is offered. If black takes the bait and grabs the queen, can you spot the famous mate in 2? That's right. Bishop takes f7, king e7, which is forced, knight d5 mate. So, if our opponent does not take the queen bait, is this a dubious position? Not at all. Black's best response is knight takes e5, allowing white to win the light-squared bishop with queen takes h5, and after black takes the bishop on c4, white can win the piece right back with a queen check on b5, picking up the knight on the following turn no matter what black's response is. White is up a pawn with control of the center, a great place to be out of the opening.
I played a good tournament, but it wasn't like something I expected. It was, well, I enjoyed it a lot, but still to be in the final and to win it, it's not easy, first of all, and I couldn't really expect it. So I was very, very happy.
It's the Kateryna Lagno show here at the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship. With only bullet remaining in her match against Priyanka, she leads by 9 full points. Irene, it's been all Kateryna. She looks to repeat her performance from a year ago. She wants to face Harika in the next round.
Wow, yes, I think this is going to be a very good warm-up for Kateryna Lagno because it's looking like she's going to proceed to the semi-final and facing off Harika. And we just hope that Priyanka will be able to make a comeback in the bullet portion.
Because we have to note that every single game actually has monetary value attached to it. The prize fund is such where the winner gets half of the allotted prize plus whatever by win percentage, the remaining half, not whatever. I should speak better. My apologies, everybody. But every single game does count. So for Priyanka, maybe she'll have a chance to win a few and gain some more money, even if she can't come back in the match.
Oh, that is true. But I don't think money is what Priyanka is currently thinking. I think she is thinking how to solve her time management and try to make the bullet portion a comeback, a real comeback for her, and try to even the match or even lead the match, although it's looking quite unlikely at the moment.
Yeah, it's not all about the money. Got to make the world dance. And I think Priyanka needs to make her pieces dance because what she has been struggling with is time management. So, Irene, I think she just has to let those pieces go flying in the bullet.
Right, right. And use some trick of yours, Robert, just like what you showed in one of the games, Bishop A3 with Queen H2. It works. It's going to work perfectly in the bullet. I agree with you.
You just have to try it, make the most of your chances. And if you're completely lost, maybe put your queen in front of their queen and hope that they pre-move something else. So we'll see how Priyanka does here. And Kateryna, she's been on fire. Will her internet keep up? And will she be able to continue her speedy play?
Yeah, and she's wearing white. Sorry, she's wearing red. I'm colorblind now. So red means like she's going to go for all the fights. And wow, yeah. We'll see. So they already started, Robert. So the first move, d4, knight f6 is on the board. Now they're finding their way. Maybe King's Indian is going to appear again on the board.
And Priyanka somehow down 7 seconds to start. So maybe she didn't realize that the game was beginning. But she has a normal setup thus far. She needs to keep up the pace, and she's doing a good job thus far.
Right, right. So this looks like, I thought it was kind of like some London with the g6 and bishop g7. I think Daniel would have been very happy if somehow Priyanka played the job of a London, but it's turned out to something that still London type position, but now e5.
The much needed break for black. You see the pieces are coming to life, but white is very solid here. And at some point you throw, and that point is now, a5 to be played, opening up that rook on its starting square.
Right, rook d8. I mean, if you ask me, I really like black's position here. It looks more, it has more space to the pieces. Bishop c6 hitting the queen. Where does the queen go? Queen c2 back. And now, what is black trying to do? Maybe some break, but there's no break yet.
But I'm looking at the same break that you are. I really want to play d4. Not sure it works out, and neither is Kateryna Lagno. And bishop b7 back. So this queen gained a tempo by going to c2. The rook comes to d1. Any moment, a takes b6 could be an idea opening the a file.
Right, yeah, and that rook cannot move yet because, like you mentioned, if rook moves, then a b, rook a7. Now Priyanka decided to just close the a file, a6, bishop c8, and that bishop might hit on f5, and Kateryna just did it.
The queen is under attack. The queen should move out the way. Maybe queen a4. That's one idea, but you need to figure out what you're threatening in this position. Queen b3 does attack the d5 pawn, but also may invite knight a5 with tempo. These decisions are not easy.
Queen e2, and now maybe it's time for, I was about to say, the rook on a to move. So this exchange is apparently a bad decision, as Engine says.
No, there was one crazy tactic that was available to white, and that's why knight e5 was bad, but I only realized it because the engine reacted. The player's knight d4, I think, was available, some kind of craziness. But this still looks promising for white. There's a bishop that's just like hiding out on b7, and black needs to be worried about this d5 pawn.
Exactly, but that bishop, even though it's having a very good outpost on b7, well, it's hitting on d5, But I still like Black's position because, oh, the break of e4. This is such a nice break. This is something that Priyanka was aiming to do.
Yeah, we liked Black's position until e4 happened, and now suddenly White has the upper hand. The bishop on b7 is just a boss piece back there, and now start trading off some pieces. Queen f3 given a question mark, and Black also given a question, an X, which usually marks the spot.
Okay, rook d2. I don't really like that move. I would have played rook e5 maybe, and then go forward with all my rooks. Now king g2. Okay, Priyanka is down to 5 seconds. She has to play faster now.
They both are in time trouble, so they're going to make mistakes. The queen comes in, the queen goes back to f2. Queen d4, not available. That's a check to your king. But Black is trying to hold on here. Priyanka needs to play for a win. No draws here.
Yeah, okay, it's draw by repetition, maybe because Priyanka doesn't see the concrete follow-up in that position. Okay, second game of the bullet portion.
And for Priyanka, it goes to show that there might be some work in the bullet portion, which will help her in blitz as well. But she played a nice game there. She took control by getting her bishop into enemy territory. And it's Kateryna on the clock. All the moves just appeared at once. That took a moment.
Yeah, and we are seeing another French defense, and I think the same method that Kateryna has employed in her game before. Oh, okay. Suddenly we got into a different position now. Bishop g5. I think we see this position already before, but the queen moved to f7 before. Now it moved to f8. I don't know whether it's a better decision.
Yeah, these games have not gone well for Priyanka, so I think she just needs to scrap her French, go to some Sicilian or something like that. And Kateryna, she's attacking. The king is in the center, so that's why White wants to open up the position.
Right. Yes, this always the theme of this match. Yeah, the king was always in the center, and then it is a question on how you break open the center and try to target the king.
And the eval bar is sky high. There might be some sacrifices for a rook for a bishop along the d file. You probably don't even need to do that, but that likely is going to. Oh gosh, this just hurts. Can't castle.
Yeah, this looks just losing, totally losing for Priyanka. The king is just stuck in the center, and all the white pieces are out attacking. The only hope for Priyanka is somehow to get this mating idea on h2 works, which I don't think Kateryna will fall into it.
Right, because if you take on e5, the queen threatens checkmate, and the bishop on c5. That is a blunder, and knight to d2 played instead. Maybe knight g4, just go for the attack, try to flip this game around.
Yeah, exactly. But there's always some other resource that after knight g4, you can stop it by playing f4, for example. There's so many things to stop it because the weakness of the king on e8, it doesn't really compensate anything in a black's position.
Right, knight g4 does threaten checkmate, but White can stop. Wow, f4, not the first time today we've seen Kateryna lash out with that move. It looks risky, but she has everything under her control.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks to another pair of bishop, another better pair of bishop that Kateryna has. This is not the first time she has having it. And now, yeah, things are looking very doomed for black.
No, the king can't move. It's about to be checked, which will likely lead to mate. 2 seconds, 1 second, barely getting the move up, but that cannot help your cause.
Yeah, and we can also see actually the level of accuracy is going down, but this is bullet. Everyone will make mistakes at some point. You cannot play a perfect chess. And Kateryna Lagno won the second game in the bullet portion.
13.5 to 3.5 is the score. And at one point, Priyanka led 2-0 in this match. So it's been Kateryna Lagno on a tear. She will not be stopped. And she's working her way through to the semis where she'll face Harika. And that will be another great matchup. But this opening round thus far have had some lopsided matches when it gets down to the end of the match.
Yeah, exactly. Kateryna is just showing her super class. Like, I really like how she plays when she gets everything fixed. She just shows her wide repertoire. She shows her universality in playing. She's a totally technical player, but when there's tactics on the board, and especially when she's winning the game, she's not going to miss it. And her time management is just something for you to. Everyone has to learn about Kateryna's time management. It's just so good.
Well, I thought the list would never stop. You kept giving complimentary. No, you're spitting facts. Like it's true. She's ever since the beginning when she had shaky internet and shaky play, she's really been an unstoppable force. So in this position with the black pieces, she's up 10 seconds. She has a nice looking, healthy center here. The knight on the rim isn't particularly dim. It kicked the queen back. I love this for black.
Yes, yes, black's looking very solid. The pawn in the center usually is quite weak, but in this case, it's looking very, very solid. And before, I think this is the needed break. I know that the computer doesn't really like it, but you have to play something like this for Priyanka. You cannot just play some quiet move and wait for your opponent to attack you.
And by sacrificing a pawn, you've carved out the d4 square for your knight. This knight may go to b5 at some moment, but that knight on the rim is no longer there. It's on c4. Black is up a healthy pawn, no risk in the position, and up nearly 20 seconds.
Yes, yes, time management again. But it's hard. It's hard. When you're playing bullet, it's hard. And if you're not used to it, it's also hard. Well, Kateryna is, I guess, even though she doesn't really play many online tournaments in the in the past few months, oh man, but she's been playing very, very well. It's as though she just played it yesterday.
The experience, right? What do they say? That form is temporary, class is forever, something like that. Her class is, well, it's been a treat to see today for everyone except for Priyanka. And for Priyanka, she's played some very, very good games. She, got out to a hot start, but since then, it's not been going so well. But she has a chance in this game.
Yeah, and she just did have her chance. Priyanka was, after gaining the b6 pawn, her position was better. But okay, she had to move fast, and now the eval bar back to even.
Bishop takes d5, set up a trick with bishop takes f7 check. No, unfortunately for her, Kateryna is not going to miss it, but chances for both sides now.
Exactly. Though the bishop on d5 is looking good, I think Kateryna will find her way to use her pair of bishop to compensate it.
Rook b6 is a good start, getting the rook to an open file. G3 giving the king a little bit more space to work with. The knight can hop out to c4. Maybe now is the time. And that knight might land on d6, going after the black king side.
Wow, this is still everyone's game now. Wow, I don't know why the eval bar is still even, because this is quite complex to me. Even though the a pawn is looking dangerous, but bishop b4 is a mistake.
Both sides are going to be making mistakes here. The knight on d6 was attacking f7. She didn't take it. The knight may have to go to c2 now. Uh-oh. Rook b2. Uh-oh.
Wow.
Bishop d4.
That's really nice. That's wow. And how Kateryna found this instantly, like as if she just saw this. Oh my gosh. And bishop, okay, now it's unstoppable. The pawn on a3 will deciding, and rook takes g3 as well.
And now rook h2.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow, just too many pawns on the board right now. And Priyanka resigned, and we are moving on to the fourth game in the bullet portion. But what a game!
What a game. And I'm going to have to give credit to Priyanka because, I mean, she could just throw in the towel. She could just not really try anymore. She's trying in each and every game, and she still feels like she can gain something valuable from this experience. It's not fun to trail your opponent by 11 points. I mean, it feels like it's the worst thing in the world. Everyone's watching it, a blowout, but she's played some great games, and she deserves a ton of credit.
Exactly. I think Priyanka really has a very good mindset. It's about winning and learning. So it doesn't matter how the match will turn out later for her, she will gain something out of it.
And she, right now, has a position where it's really complicated. The black king can't castle. The white king was ready to castle queenside, but bishop takes c3 was on the agenda. So I think that Kateryna did the right thing to play bishop e2 and bring her king towards the king side.
Yes, that is a server side for the king, obviously. And now f5 is on the board. Priyanka, this is, I think, her first time playing this type of opening in this match. So she finally makes something up in her repertoire, which is, I think, a good decision because now we are looking at some fresh position, some fresh variation. And things are looking good for black, I would say.
Yeah, healthy position for her. Her king is in the center. That's the one downside. She's also trailing by 10 seconds. But look at her bishops; they look very powerful.
Yep, and maybe now long castle is in order because I think I prefer it better than short castle, and she just did.
Good call by you. Good play by Priyanka. So for her, she has all of her pieces on good natural squares. And look at this, three in a row in the center.
Exactly, and now it's just time to bring the rook in the center. But maybe it is now the time you can take on d3 first, and then maybe rook d7 or something like that. Yes, yeah, just play calm, play all the good looking move. Do not actually play for some ideas, but just stop your opponent's ideas.
She is a better pawn structure. There's an isolated pawn here on d3. She's protecting all of her own pawns. She can improve the position. She's down by 8 seconds right now, so Lagno continues to pressure on the clock, but the play has been good from Priyanka.
Yes, yes, yeah. She plays much faster, but ooh, bishop a5. I about to miss it. Yeah. Okay, this looks a bit loose for the king. Is it time to exchange the rook? Yeah, like you pointed out, rook b7 looks good. Yes, because the knight on d5 is just a super knight, and king d7. Now the strategy has changed a bit. Now the rook is coming down via the p file.
Ooh, she wants bishop takes d4 and knight e2 check, but that
Oof. Ooh,
oh, it's mate!
That's checkmate.
Oh, and you see it on Priyanka's face. She can't believe it. That's a checkmate
Oh.
blunder in the center of the board.
Wow. Wow,
It's that,
Kateryna, unstoppable.
it's that kind of day, right? Where Priyanka was doing everything right, and then she still gets checkmated.
Exactly, yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
I just,
Okay,
I just feel for her, you know. I'm just like, I wish there was something I could do or say, but nothing is going her way.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, we see another King's Indian defense right now, but another variation, a different variation to what we saw before. It's a four pawns variation. And how do we see this position? The knight on d4 is looking very solid, protected by the bishop on g7. But white has a pair of bishops, so maybe white can do something about it.
Yeah, it's one of these things where the knight looks good, but white just operates around it. Bishop back to f2. You can put a rook on e1 if you want. g4 was an idea in the previous position because of checkmate ideas, and now that's why Kateryna is trying to trade queens.
Yeah, she's back to playing some technical chess again, trading the queens and then gain the advantage in the position little by little. King h8, very thematic move, moving away from the semi-open line.
And so we see some trades being offered on the e-file. I don't know how white crashes through. It looks very promising for her. She offers a queen trade, and that was approved by the engine.
Yeah, that is a good decision to trade the queen in this position. B5, b3, and white is, I think, enjoying a better endgame, maybe due to the pawn structure.
It makes perfect sense. This f5 pawn is a target and isolated. The d6 pawn is backwards, and black is trying to open up the position. I'm looking at the clocks once again. It's Priyanka down to 23 seconds, Kateryna 10 plus seconds ahead on the clock.
Right. Yep. So knight e6 is a little bit inaccuracy, but white still manages to keep the control on the board.
Wow, I thought she was going to take this b5 pawn. Instead, she was b4, trying to loosen up the control of the d4 square, but that gives a question mark from the engine.
Right. But knight e6 is not a good reply by Kateryna because the pawn on b5 falls.
So it's a clear extra pawn for white at this stage. No risk in the position that I see, but black is a little bit ahead on the clock and will try to use the dark squares to her advantage.
Yes, exactly. If only white could use the 7 rank with both of her major pieces, it could be a deadly threat toward the black's king. So king h7. Oh, is c5 hanging?
It
Oh, you
looks like
can
it to me.
take. Yeah, c5 is hanging.
Don't
And you cannot
blunder
take on
queen
d4. Yeah, just don't blunder that one. But you can play queen d5 now with the idea of giving a mate on g8. And
Well,
now
I didn't
you're
even see
attacking both.
It's checkmate.
Queen g8 checkmate. Oh, my! Finally, Priyanka won.
And Kateryna didn't see that coming at all. She
Yep,
reacts.
yep.
She's still cruising in the match, but you have to say that for Priyanka, it's a much, much needed win. Even though she won't get the match, it must feel good to finally get on the scoreboard after so many successive defeats and not winning a game in a while.
Right, yes. And we see some moves on the board. Whoa. So it's a
What?
Nimzovich defense.
Yeah, what was that? Knight c6 on move two. So now she's playing in a creative fashion.
Yep, yep, yeah. She's just trying to. Well, this is bullet. You just have to play the first 10 or 15 moves without any thinking. But it consumed her about 10 to 13 seconds.
But she's keeping even on the clock at least. So this looks like what Katerina's had from the black side. So it looks like they should have colors exchanged at this point.
Yes, but this looks like a better version. Now the bishop is on c2 compared to what it was on e2, and now the bishop is already hitting towards the h7. So black has to be careful not to move the knight.
And f5 becomes a threat with f6 after. You can throw that pawn forward and go after the black king. And rook e8, a calm reply from Priyanka there.
Yes, and saving the square on f8 for the knight in case there is f5. Knight e5, very, very ambitious play by Kateryna here.
So what's the point? Bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes, that you open up the f file?
At least you get c5. Yeah.
I didn't even look in that direction. So you have better eyes than me. I do wear glasses for a reason, but this looks looking very promising for white.
Okay. Well, now the position is, I think, okay, much better for white for many good reasons. Better center, better pawn. Better pieces activity. This pair of bishops are killing, and the rook on h5 looks like a bit misplaced.
And queen h4, she's going for. So what about misplaced? I'm going for a checkmate over here. And taking bishop h3. You have to find this.
Oh, I see. Wow, that rook on h5 proven to be useful. Yeah, she was going for a kill. I think the last game that she won, it boosts her confidence.
She's playing so much better right now, and she's keeping better pace on the clock. She's shutting down her opponent's ideas, and she's playing much more loose chess. So she just is allowing herself to be adventurous.
Exactly. Yes, yes. I like this version of Priyanka much better than what she was in the two previous stages of the match. F5, exclamation mark. Very good move. And after bishop f4, there's a better move than rook e6.
Ah,
Rook e4 was a better move because now you have rook d4, right? Yeah.
that's right. But now she has 3 seconds left. She gives up f5 because she wants rook f6, and now the bishop comes in instead. Uh-oh, this is turning around completely in white's favor.
Wow, look at that. Key f8. And now, yeah, now white is just better because that pawn on d7 is kind of untouchable. Oh, just takes and have a better endgame with a better pawn structure. Yeah, after b3, a4, at least she would get away with a draw at least.
Yeah, great play, honestly, by both of them. Bishop takes b7 was a nice find from Kateryna, and then able to play into this endgame for Priyanka. She knows that it should be a draw with best play. She's also speeding up, so she is earning herself what should be a half point if she doesn't blunder.
Yep,
She blundered.
yep. She blundered, yeah, and now it's a passive rook on c6, and Kateryna should be able to find her way around on how to win this endgame. And yeah, g6 is the next target.
And what Priyanka needed to do was take that H pawn while she could, bring her rook back to passive defense, because now she has passive defense and she's down a pawn. And you see what Kateryna is doing. She's just going back with her king over here, and then she'll be able to push her pawn.
Right, yes, there should be yeah, she should be able to play this endgame by hand. There's you don't need any rocket science to win this. And yes, Kateryna won another game, but it was such a good game by Priyanka though. I mean, she had her chances to win that game.
She just slipped when she went rook e6 rather than rook e4. And chess can be brutal and evil like that. You play such a nice game, and then you make one little mistake, and suddenly
Yeah.
the game turns the other way.
Yes, and now we see an Italian game on the board for the first time on their match.
So they're switching up opening. I think Priyanka, if she could do this match all over again, now that she has some experience, she would have switched openings earlier because it's working out much better for her.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's like what Dania mentioned yesterday, that if one opening doesn't work for you and it's proven to be like that for a few games, you just simply have to change it. Sometimes chess players, they're just too stubborn. They just want to gain their understanding unnecessarily and then just keep losing in the same manner.
Yeah, and sometimes it's you have to sort of have a lot of faith in yourself. You've studied all these openings. I should know them. I should be doing well. But when you're getting punished the way that Kateryna was doing to Priyanka, yeah, it probably was better for her just to play anything other than continuing the same lines that caused her such misery.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes. So this position is white is standing better. That d5 pawn move was a bit too early, but I mean this is still pretty much. Ooh, hang on. f5 was a blunder.
I think knight h4 was probably the correct response after f5, but it was getting sharp. Still a sharp position. I prefer white because black's king is typically less safe. And Kateryna, she's experienced, but the king is a little bit open.
Right, right. Yes. But okay, Priyanka, she has to start playing now. She has been spending, I don't know, almost 10 seconds for the next move.
Can't afford it, and it was a bad move, right? That's what we're often told, that these great players, when they think, they often actually make worse moves than if they had played instantly.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just have to go by your intuition instead of your objective calculation. Especially this is bullet, you have only 16 seconds in your clock, so you have to time it perfectly.
And queen e2 back, that knight on c4 doesn't have too many squares. a3 is available to it. It looks awkward, though. And Kateryna, she's catching up on the clock, so good
Wow.
news for Priyanka is it's getting closer on time.
Right. Yes, knight a3 is on the board, taking on c2, and now, whoa, Kateryna's pawn just marching toward the king. f4, g4, and it's a question mark. Wow.
f3, can you blockade everything with rook e3? This knight is actually trapped over here, so you have to play knight f5, but that at minimum wins black a pawn. What?
Oh, there was
Uh-oh.
no checkmate, right? I mean, I think she's worried that there might be some check along the g file and then on g2, so that's why she just sacrificed the knight. But this is just winning for black right now.
I'm looking at the clock. It does give white some hope, just because if you pick up this f3 pawn, 2 pawns for the piece, she's going right after it. And I think Lagno would like to trade some pieces off, but not so easy.
Yeah, it's not so easy. The knight on e5 will not trade with the bishop, so white will just keep the composure and then just try to, I don't know, just keep on hanging the thread.
Yeah, just knight e2. Oh, knight.
Knight e2 was missed. Okay, don't go back to g1.
No, not a second time. And we see a trade, knight e5 at the end, c4 drops, and that is that.
Yep. Yep. And king d6, king c5, and then you can even afford to exchange some of your piece with the pawns. Knight h6 will be, but this is a bit too much now.
Right, full extra piece and pass pawns for black that are going to start rolling up the board. This is the final game of the match. That is official. And for Kateryna Lagno, it's only a question, will she win by 12 points or by 13?
Yeah, you want to win big, right? Because there is a monetary reason behind it.
And here she is definitely winning huge. She's winning by 13 points. You see it, 17.5 to 4.5. Kateryna Lagno, the reigning champion, she started off very poorly with 2 losses, and then she went on a rampage. She advanced to the semifinals. Irene, I don't know what else we can say besides that was an excellent display of chess.
This is just beginning, Robert. She will play the semifinal and potentially play in the final. So she's just warming up. We know that Kateryna Lagno is a very experienced player. She has proven it in all of her games, how she came back from the first 2 losses. It shows a very great mentality as well.
Yeah, that break came at the perfect time for her. She was able to then go on a winning streak. She proved Smarter Chess predictions right. She dominates in this match. She will have a tough match next in Harika. But coming up next here, we will bring in Kateryna Lagno for an interview. So Irene and I will quickly step aside, but when we return, we'll be joined by the winner of this match and last year's Women's Sweet Chess Champion, Kateryna Lagno. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back with her in just a few.
Any good chess tactics book has one pattern in it that feels like it is on a completely different level than all of the other tactical patterns. Bearing the vivid and accurate moniker, the windmill, this pattern features an amazing sequence of repeated discovered checks that can be used to win a nearly unlimited amount of material. The most famous windmill is definitely the one played by Mexican prodigy Carlos Torre against former world champion Emmanuel Lasker. But Bobby Fischer's game of the century also features a windmill. Here's another one that I really like. White starts with a rook sacrifice that leads to a combination of bishop and rook checks that simply consume Black's forces. The Lafong is a dirty, dirty trick that will probably only work at bullet, but you have to pull it off at least once in your life. When you sense that your opponent is pre-moving g6 and bishop g7 to start the game, you can play d4 and bishop h6 to try to win the bishop on g7.
Shakes, guys. No one is watching. Oh, they all missed that. I see the tilt. I can feel the tilt.
It is a high risk and high reward strategy because you are hanging your own bishop if you don't catch them in a pre-move. But it is certainly hilarious when you do pull it off.
Like one of my friends, Asios, he made a bot. The report chart was partly based on hyperbullet games, so then you could see a lot of the Lafongs and Queen C2 takes H7 and so on. So.
We are delighted to be joined by the 2022 WSCC champion and winner of this match, Grandmaster Kateryna Lagno. Kateryna, congratulations on the match win. Can you talk us through the start of the match when you lost internet and you were down by 2 points? How did you turn it all around?
Well, yes, it was a very tough moment because I thought it's gonna continue through all the match. My internet connection here is not very safe, and I was not really concentrating on my games, and the quality was very low, unfortunately. So, yes, it was a tough moment, but fortunately for me, yes, then I saw that, well, the quality, I cannot say that it grew up a lot. No, unfortunately, but
Recording stopped.
my internet connection finally I didn't have any troubles. So at least this.
Right. And you won by a very huge score, 17 and a half versus 4.5. It is what 13 points difference is just so huge. What do you think about your opponent's play? Is there any point that you're trying to target on her weakness on? Because it seems to me and it seems to us, Robert and I, that Priyanka has a very bad time management. What do you think?
Yes, I also had this feeling that she started thinking a bit too long during the short blitz game, so that's why I decided just to play quickly, and I understood that I'm not in the best shape, and well, I can change the course of the match if I try at least to play faster.
Wow, Robert, I'm just scared. Katya just said that she's not in her best shape. I'm just going to be very, very scared. What happened if Katya played her best chess?
Well,
No. I mean, but even if you win with a big score, but you feel when you play that well, your opponent missed many chances you saw during
That's
the
right.
game also. So, yes, she could really score more points, and well, but she was very low on time, and she just couldn't find the right way. But yes, well, she could score, I don't know, at least 5 points for sure, 5 more points.
And Katerina, after the internet gambit, there was that first break, and you were trailing by 2.5, 1.5. What did you do during that break? Because after it, you seemed to go on an absolute rampage, winning pretty much every game.
I fixed my internet. That's all. I didn't have time anything to to check or the openings. No, I just was like uh, concentrated with my internet connection. I tried to fix it, and fortunately for me, it worked out. Well, I still had some troubles in my very first game. I think with it was I lost the connection at some point, but then it went back and well, and somehow I started winning the games. So I don't know what
Right.
happened.
Yeah, but it was definitely a very great performance by you, Katya. And then on the semifinal, you are going to taking on Harika Dronofali. I'm sure this is your umpteenth time playing against her. Is there any specific preparation that you're going to do?
Well, I will. Yes, I will try. Maybe I will try to play some blitz games because I I couldn't play before my this first match. I couldn't find the time, so I will try. Yes, because I lost the habit. You know, yes, you need to be in shape before the match. You need to play some online games, and yes, I will try to find some time this time because yes, I felt that no, it's not as it should be. And because Harika, yes, she is very fast and she plays a lot of online tournaments, so she's a very strong opponent.
Absolutely, Katerina. She's a great opponent, as are you. And I know these matches can be very stressful. So we have a question from the chat from Derrybum asking, what do you do to decompress from tournaments or matches like this?
Well, I don't know. During the match, you don't have a lot of time to to do something. You just just put some water on your face. You don't. Maybe you open your window. You take some fresh air, a little bit, some breathe. You breathe a bit. But yes, after the match, you need some time to relax. Yes, to I don't know. It's not easy to sleep immediately after such a match, But well, maybe to walk a bit, to calm down, and then yes, that's all what I can suggest. Just a good walk, and then I don't know, to sleep well.
Right. Well, we know that your next match is going to be against Harika, but what about your next event, your next tournament? Is there anything that you already scheduled?
Well, not really. I will. I'm gonna play some rapid tournaments in Moscow, but I mean a classical chess. No, I don't have anything, and I hope I'm gonna play the main tournament this year. The last main tournament is of course Rapid and Blitz World Championship. So
Yep.
this is very important and very interesting tournament ahead. So
Right. And we wish you best of luck on that. And tomorrow it's going to be Vaishali versus your best friend, Alexandra Kosteniuk. What do you take on that?
well, I feel a bit sorry for Alexandra because she right now she plays another tournament. Yes, she plays European Team Championship, and I don't know how she gonna manage to play both. So she must be exhausted, and I feel very sorry for her. But well, I do believe she has a lot of experience, and she's a very strong player. Well, the match is really unclear, but well, of course I will support Alexandra. Sorry.
Kateryna, she has such a difficult opponent in Vaishali. Is there anything you could say? I mean, have you been impressed by how Vaishali has improved so much, winning the Grand Swiss the way she did and becoming a grandmaster?
You know, I wasn't so much impressed because I checked her results, her games in Qatar Open just before the tournament, Grand Swiss tournament, and I saw that she improved a lot. She played really well, and I wasn't impressed. Well, I'm very happy for her because she's very young and looks like she can, she is just probably just the start of the road. So I wish just the best of luck and okay, see, let's meet in Toronto. Yes.
The best of luck, except when she plays you in the candidates, right?
Yeah.
Well, Kateryna, we know it's getting late by you, so we'll let you go. But really, congratulations on what was a great match, and we'll see you in the semifinal soon.
Yes. Thanks a lot. See you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
That is Grandmaster Kateryna Lagno, the 2022 Women's Speed Chess Champion. She wins by 17.5 to 4.5. Irene, extremely impressive from her, and also great to hear her thoughts about some of the other competitors in the field.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she's a very experienced player and she knows back and front about all these players as well. I think when you asked her about Vaishali, I think it reminded her about her young self because she was kind of a prodigy herself when she was younger.
Yeah, for sure. And when she said she's not that impressed, I think she means she's not surprised because Vaishali has had so many great performances. She said, I saw her result in the Qatar Open. She was so strong there. So the results keep coming in. But she said to you, she wants Alexandra Kosteniuk to win that match tomorrow.
Well, they've been best of friends for many years, I think, since they were in the junior years. So it's no surprise for me. But yeah, Vaishali's great performance, great results recently in the Qatar Masters Open and also in the Grand Swiss. Those results are quite expected. Yeah, I mean, it is a very great result, of course, but there is no surprise then because Vaishali has been a very great talent from India and also she put lots of hours and efforts into chess. So such a result are quite expected.
I'm totally with you, and we will see Vaishali and Alexandra play tomorrow. But any final thoughts on what we saw from today and what we can expect from Kateryna going forward?
Well, I think Kateryna has found her only weakness that is in the internet connection. I think once she fixes it, she is going to be a full beast mode on. So I think Harika will be has to really careful against her. And tomorrow is I think one of the most anticipated matches in the quarterfinal. Vaishali versus Kosteniuk. It's a battle between the youngster and the experienced player. I'm going to commentate again with you, Robert. I'm going to very looking forward to it.
So am I, and I think all the fans are too, because Vaishali, she's a household name at this point. She takes on the chess queen, Alexandra Kosteniuk, tomorrow. Today, we saw Kateryna Lagno dominate her opening match. She moves on to the semis, so 3 out of our 4 semifinalists are in the books. Who will write their name next to them? We'll find out tomorrow, but on behalf of chess.com, Irene Sukanda and Robert Hess, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow for the next and last quarterfinal matchup here at the Julius Baer Women's Speed Chess Championship.